861. Escape. Naruto, who was in midair, had nowhere to focus his body, and could not attack this huge bird monster at all. And the little antelope whose body was tightly clamped by the claws of the big bird monster couldn't help neighing in pain. Damn! Naruto scolded secretly, trying to turn his body over and sit on the back of the big bird monster, but because the big bird monster was flying very fast in midair, the strong wind pressure made people almost breathless, whereas the strength to do other things. However, it is not Naruto's style to be slaughtered like this all the time. This big bird monster doesn't know where to take himself and the antelope. If it wants to go back to its lair and enjoy it with its companions, it will be bad. At this moment, Naruto suddenly noticed a gust of wind coming from the midair behind his body. He looked back and saw another huge bird appearing behind him, chasing after him. So it seems that these two birds are robbing food. Fortunately, in that case, there is still hope. Seeing that the giant bird behind him was getting faster and faster, it seemed that he was about to catch up. The giant bird holding the diker hurriedly landed downward. Boom! With two muffled sounds, Naruto and the diker fell to the ground together. Just when Naruto was dizzy, there was a sudden hissing in his ears. Looking closely, I saw that the big bird that had grabbed itself was fighting frantically with the big bird that caught up later, but it was at a disadvantage and was pecked and injured by the big bird in many places. Naruto looked at the little antelope beside him, and said quickly, "Take advantage of the moment, run." Without further ado, he pulled the diker and ran between the dunes ahead. However, at this moment, the two big birds suddenly noticed the movements of Naruto and the diker, and they stopped fighting immediately, chasing and killing them. Quick! Naruto slapped the little antelope on the buttocks, and the little antelope snorted softly and rushed forward. Naruto fell behind, and he saw the two giant birds pounce on him who fell behind. However, the expression on his face remained unchanged, without the slightest hint of fear. With his running speed, it was obvious that he could not escape the pursuit of the giant bird, so he concentrated on observing the movements of the two giant birds. Focusing on the eyes, at this moment, Naruto's reaction power has reached the best level. At the moment when the two giant birds pounced, Naruto's body suddenly flashed to the side. Swish! Two figures passed over his shoulders, and the sharp claws pierced his shoulders abruptly. Blood sprayed. However, because Naruto's dodging action was very timely, they did not succeed in the end. The two giant birds did not grab Naruto's body, and they didn't have time to separate when they were close to the ground. So close. Naruto covered the injury on his shoulder with one hand, took advantage of the opportunity when the two giant birds hadn't gotten up yet, and immediately got up, chasing out in the direction of the diker. After the two giant birds got up again, Naruto had already run out for a long distance. They had to spread their wings again to catch up. Naruto covered the wound on his shoulder with one hand and ran with all his strength. Just now, he was really careless and overestimated his body's ability to move. If he flashed faster, he could avoid this unnecessary injury. But, although he is injured now, it seems that the danger has not yet escaped. We must find a way to solve these two monsters together. Naruto glanced back. At this time, the diker in front stopped halfway through. It saw that Naruto had fallen behind and looked injured, and immediately ran back, carrying him on his back and running forward. "Thank you, diker," Naruto said softly, lying on its back. The speed of the diker is very fast. Although it can't match the flight speed of the two giant birds, they can't catch up for a while. However, this is obviously not the way to go. Naruto thought while enduring the pain on his shoulder. This is a desert with only large and small sand dunes around, and there is nowhere to hide at all. At this time, even Naruto has nothing to do. There is no other way but to fight. If you run away blindly, you will only be eaten by them when you are exhausted. "Let me down, let me down. I'll come, stop them," Naruto said. The diker seemed to understand Naruto's words, but he hesitated, but did not let go. After getting along for this period of time, although the diker did not speak, Naruto seemed to understand what it wanted to express when he was in close contact with it. "Let me down. Be obedient, otherwise we will both die here." Naruto shouted loudly. If he left himself alone, there would still be a chance to survive. "If you are exhausted, you will not have the strength to fight." The Diker shook its head. It was very obedient, but at this time it would not let Naruto down no matter what. Just when Naruto was about to fight the danger of being injured again and jumped off its back, he suddenly found that the sound of the pursuit behind him had disappeared, and the two giant birds were hovering at a low altitude not far away, looking at him. Here, it seems that they are afraid of something strange and dare not chase. Naruto was secretly strange, but it seemed that he was out of danger. The Diker ran for a long time with Naruto on his back, before finally stopping. Naruto jumped off it and sat on the ground to rest. He murmured with a wry smile, "This is really a dangerous place, it's really not easy to live here." At this time, the Diker lowered his head, opened his mouth and began to lick the wound on Naruto's shoulder. Feeling its delicacy and tenderness, Naruto felt a little comfort in his heart. Fortunately, he was accompanied by a Diker along the way. He reached out his hand and gently stroked the head of the Diker, and the expression on his face became very gentle. "There is a cool feeling on the shoulders, I believe that the wounds here will get better soon." Finally got through a danger. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. However, just when he was about to close his eyes and take a good rest for a while, a sense of unease suddenly came from all around him. 862. Desperate. The next moment, the Diker raised its head sharply and looked towards the horizon in the distance. Naruto also turned his attention to the distance. There was a look of shock on his face. On the horizon not far away, there are dozens of monsters approaching. "Run!" Seeing this scene, Naruto quickly pulled the Diker back and ran out. However, just as he turned around, a dozen monsters suddenly appeared not far behind. Left, there are also a dozen. Right, there are also a dozen. Surrounded. A thought popped into Naruto's mind. The Diker was trembling all over at this time, and was frightened by this sudden large group of monsters. Naruto's rough count, there are probably 50 or 60. He and the Diker had nowhere to avoid, they could only stand in place and wait for their arrival, hoping that the goal of these guys was not themselves. However, this extravagance is obviously not realized. After a while, these dozens of monsters have come to Naruto and the Diker. There are humanoid monsters, animal-shaped monsters, and other strangely shaped monsters, each with an empty hole on its body. Seeing this scene, Naruto couldn't help but feel a very familiar feeling. He seemed to have seen this scene before, but he just couldn't remember it. He scratched his head, stopped thinking about it, and turned to face the encirclement of these monsters in earnest. After a while, Naruto and the Diker were finally completely surrounded. From the mouths of these monsters, there were bursts of intimidating roars, and with the sound of their footsteps, they approached the two of them. Each of these monsters gave off a breath that was no less than the two giant birds that were chasing him before, and they seemed to be even more powerful. Done. Even Naruto couldn't help but have such an idea at this time. This is a completely unequal battle. The strength of himself and the Diker is beyond the reach of those two giant birds. It looks like the luck is really coming to an end. But being eaten by dozens of monsters like this is really unwilling. At this moment, the Diker took a step forward and suddenly stopped in front of him. A faint green light appeared from the top of its head, and a pair of eyes stared at the closest monster in front of him. Seeing this scene, Naruto couldn't help being shocked. The Diker is protecting itself. It has not given up hope of life. Then why are you still desperate? Yes. No matter how strong the opponent is and the disparity in strength, if they give up because of this, wouldn't it be bad? Really, it seems that I was used to being a strong person before, but now that I suddenly become a weak person, I don't know how to survive. Even if the opponent is very strong, when it is irreversible, we must do our best to exert our last strength. This is how the weak survive. At this time, Naruto's whole body suddenly flashed a soft white light. The white light surrounded his body, and a powerful spiritual pressure spread out. The monsters all around focused their attention on Naruto. They seemed to feel a strong soul force from Naruto, and they couldn't help roaring excitedly. Such a delicious soul, eating it will definitely improve a lot. All the monsters rushed towards Naruto at this moment. Come on, don't underestimate me, Naruto shouted, and his figure rushed forward first. At this moment, Naruto felt that his body speed and strength had improved significantly, and he found that he could still fight. There seems to be infinite strength on the fist. A monster in front of him waving his claws, Kiba, rushed over. Naruto kicked his feet, jumped high, and avoided. Next up. One punch. Boom. With a muffled sound, the monster was directly hit in the head by Naruto, and the body was shocked and flew out. At the same time, other monsters also rushed over and launched a fierce attack on Naruto. Although Naruto's strength and speed have improved, he is quickly exhausted in the face of these dozens of sieges. At first he was able to avoid their attacks, but after a while, his strength gradually drained and his speed slowed down, while the monsters' attacks were still as fierce. Kai! Suddenly, a pair of sharp claws slapped on Naruto, who had just jumped halfway up. A long bloodstain was pulled directly from Naruto's arm. On the ground. Cough cough. Naruto spat out a mouthful of blood, but struggled to get up again, gasping for breath. In the eyes of the body injury, the strength gradually loses, and the action becomes slow. These all indicate that the next battle will be more and more difficult. And so far, he has only defeated 3 monsters. Damn it. Sure enough, fighting these huge guys with bare hands is impossible without weapons. Naruto scolded secretly. But before, I relied on ninjutsu, magic, and other attacks. Now I lack these powers, and I am defenseless. It is really difficult to attack with fists and feet. The surrounding monsters were pressing step by step, and their bodies had come to the top of Naruto's head, and John Kiba swung towards Naruto with his claws. Naruto mentioned the last bit of strength, intending to fight to the death, and at this moment, a green light suddenly flashed out. A loud bang. The mask of a huge figure in front of him shattered, and his body turned into powder. Little Antelope. Naruto saw the green light stop, stood in front of him, and protected himself. Just now, these guys were all focused on attacking Naruto, and didn't notice the movements of the Diker. At this time, they succeeded in a sneak attack and killed a monster. However, there are only a few monsters killed in total, and there are dozens of powerful monsters around. This is almost an unsolved crisis. Naruto looked at the Diker standing in front of him, and suddenly laughed. Is this what it feels like to be in a desperate situation? Seeing the little friend standing in front of him, but feeling powerless, and feeling the unwilling desire to be killed soon. All of this strongly stimulated Naruto's thoughts at this time. PFF'd. Suddenly, Naruto felt his heart skip a beat. The next moment, an indescribable feeling emerged from the bottom of my heart. This, is it despair? 863. Zanpakudo now. Do not. This is not despair. This is power. This is a huge power that emerges from the depths of the soul. Naruto never imagined that there is such a power hidden in his soul. Warm, huge, light being in On Izumi. Light. Naruto's body shone with white light. This white light instantly surrounded Naruto's entire body. A soft voice came from Naruto's heart. Naruto, I'll give you strength. This sound. Naruto's whole body trembled, and a white light flashed in front of his eyes, and suddenly it turned into a fragrant scent of birds and flowers. This is a consciousness space, Naruto murmured. Haven't been here for a long time. This place was built by myself and I haven't been in for a long time since the 10 tails were wiped out. And the sound just now made Naruto feel like he had been missing for a long time. Uzumaki Kina. Naruto exclaimed, you woke up. I saw a graceful back slowly turning around in a field of flowers, and that Yuhi-colored waist-length hair was unusually dazzling. And the smile on her face made Naruto feel very nostalgic. Seeing the surprised expression on Naruto's face, Kunai became angry. "You child, do you want my mother to know?" Naruto smiled and looked at her with joy. "Didn't you say you would sleep for a long time? I have to wait a long time to see you." "Hey, who made you so worry-free?" Kunai sighed and walked over, approached Naruto, looked at him helplessly and said, "I really spent a lot of energy at that time, almost it disappeared, but, for some unknown reason, the mental energy left by the 10 tails was absorbed by me involuntarily, and the 10 tails energy you felt was only a small part of it. If you absorb it, maybe you will become stronger. You will become what you are now, and it has a lot to do with me. I'm so sorry, Naruto." Hearing what she said, Naruto couldn't help but be greatly surprised. He didn't expect such an inside story to be hidden. No wonder he killed 10 tails at that time, but he didn't get any obvious benefits. The residual spiritual energy is not very strong. It turns out that the real power was absorbed by Kunai. "Okay, I won't talk to you now. You have to solve your real crisis." Kunai suddenly looked solemn and said, "I also just woke up, and I only came out when I felt your danger in my heart. So I don't know much about the status quo, but it seems that you can no longer use ninjutsu and magic. In this case, I will help you in another way." As soon as the voice fell, Naruto's consciousness jumped out of the consciousness space, and when he came back to his senses, a word suddenly came out of Naruto's mouth: "Swirl. Vortex." Boom. The next moment, Naruto's body suddenly burst out with an incomparably powerful soul coercion. The white light illuminates almost everything around it. The Diker, as well as the monsters surrounding Naruto, were all shocked by this sudden force, and they all stood in place and couldn't move. "I see, is this the help you gave me? This power is really strong." As the rays of light scattered, Naruto's voice sounded softly. After a while, the light dissipated. At this time, a single-edged long sword with a flickering cold light appeared in Naruto's hands at some point in time. It was a weapon that looked like a katana sword, but the hilt was the color of fire Yuhi, like Kina's hair. The blade is smooth and gives a special aesthetic feeling. This is the weapon of Kunai's incarnation. This is a knife named Uzumaki. Holding the knife, Naruto seemed to be able to feel Kunai's thoughts. "Naruto, hold me tight. I will fight with you." Kunai's voice came from the blade into Naruto's heart, and Naruto was shocked. So this is This weapon is the embodiment of Kunai. She transmits her power in the form of a knife and gives it to herself to use. "Thank you," Naruto said softly to the blade. His hands gripped the hilt of the knife. In an instant, at this moment, he could feel that his body seemed to have undergone some kind of qualitative change, and a steady stream of powerful power was pouring out of it. Swish! A figure suddenly appeared above Naruto, a huge lizard-shaped monster. It opened its ferocious mouth, waving its sharp claws Kiba, and launched a surprise attack on Naruto. Naruto held Uzumaki tightly, and a cold light flashed quietly above the blade. The next moment, just before the lizard-shaped monster pounced on Naruto's face, Naruto held the knife in both hands and slammed it forward from top to bottom. In an instant, an incomparably powerful breath spread out from the knife, moving forward with an indomitable momentum. Kai! With a tearing sound, the behemoth with a height of 3 or 4 meters suddenly split into 2 halves from the center of the mask, as if it had been slashed by an invisible sword energy. The body turned into powder and slowly dissipated. With a weapon, it really makes a difference. Naruto couldn't help sighing when he saw that he killed the guy who was struggling to deal with it in one blow. "Little antelope, hide behind me." Naruto took a step forward and pulled the Diker behind him. He held Uzumaki in his hand and crossed his chest. A powerful aura emanated from him, and he was even rolled around. There was a breeze. He could feel the qualitative change of his soul. At this moment, Naruto felt that he was invincible. At the same time, a force suddenly poured into the body from the outside world, which seemed to be the force absorbed after defeating those monsters before. The wound on Naruto's arm disappeared at some point. Not only that, but the tattered Imperial God robe on his body was restored to its original state again, and the robe fluttered in the wind. Holding a long knife in his hand, he was AWE inspiring at this time. "Let's have a good fight," Naruto shouted, and rushed out with a swoosh. At this time, his speed and strength were fundamentally different from before. If the previous movements can only be considered faster than ordinary people, then his speed is now so fast that ordinary people cannot capture it. And these monsters who beat him to the point of being powerless before now pose almost no threat to Naruto, and will be slaughtered by Naruto. 864. Big Void. However, just when Naruto was about to use the weapon that suddenly appeared in his hand and the soaring power to sweep away all the enemies in front of him, a strange vibration suddenly came from Naruto's feet. Not good. He instantly felt a sense of danger in his heart, and the next moment, he slammed towards the diker beside him, hugged its body and flashed to the side. At the same time, a large hole burst open in the desert in situ, and a huge figure emerged from the hole. The flying sand fluttered in the sky, and both Naruto and the diker were blown away by the sudden movement. Holding the diker and rolling to the ground, Naruto quickly got up and looked up, but his expression was suddenly shocked. I saw that a huge and black monster suddenly appeared where Naruto stood before. It was dozens of meters tall. The huge body was like a high-rise building standing in the desert. A white mask with a long nose sticking out from the mask, and a huge hole on its chest, the same hole as the monsters it encountered before. What is this guy? It feels extremely shocking, and the huge coercion stuns all the monsters around. Naruto looked at the monsters around him and shivered, and then fled in all directions like a madman. However, at this moment, under the mask of the huge black monster, a huge mouth suddenly pulled out, followed by an incomparably violent suction force coming out from it, attacking in all directions. The nearby monsters were sucked into their mouths almost instantly, and the other monsters that were about to escape were also sucked in little by little. And Naruto and Diker are also within its range. This huge suction force instantly made Naruto stand firm, almost being sucked into the air by it. The Diker's limbs were also unstable, and its body was suspended. Seeing this, Naruto grabbed its feet tightly, and at the same time concentrated his strength on his feet, making his body stand on the ground with all his strength. Perhaps Naruto's power was strong enough at this time, and in the end he was not absorbed by it, and the Diker also survived. But there were no other monsters around. Such a large number of monsters were actually eaten by only this monster. Is this the real big boss? Naruto couldn't help but have such an idea in his mind. With only the Diker beside him, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief, as long as it was all right. At this moment, the huge monster turned around and stared at Naruto and the Diker. The moment it was stared at, Naruto only felt that the surrounding air was sinking slightly, and a feeling of extreme danger came. It's really bad. I just mastered a power, and I didn't expect to meet such a powerful opponent. Naruto cursed inwardly, pulling the Diker and galloping back. The huge monster was chasing after them step by step. Although it seemed to move slowly, it was chasing after them, and Naruto couldn't get rid of it. He ran all the way with the Diker, and he kept thinking about it in his heart. These scenes are so familiar. Especially everything that happened before, as if it were a scene from a certain anime. The black sky, the barren desert, countless monsters with masks, the hole in the chest, the samurai sword that suddenly appeared in his hand, and this incomparably huge black monster. All of this has a vague impression in Naruto's memory. At this moment, the black monster behind him suddenly opened his mouth, and at the same time the surrounding air suddenly sank, and a strong coercion emanated from the air behind him. A burst of Yuhi light. Naruto turned his head and saw a Yuhi-colored energy ball condensed in the mouth of the huge black monster. Powerful enough to condense and form in its mouth. And, aim for yourself. Flicker. Such a word suddenly popped up in Naruto's head. At this moment, he finally remembered where he was, and finally understood what all this was about. Grim Reaper. This is the Grim Reaper, one of the 3 migrant workers comics that I have seen long ago, and the monsters that have always been there are the so-called virtual, which is a kind of evil spirit that is swallowed and transformed by desire after death. The scene here is in the virtual circle. At this moment, Naruto finally thought of his situation. Memories that were too long ago slowly emerged in his mind, and pieces of information jumped out. The virtual circle is a barren area between the real world and the world of the god of death. It is a barren place. There are large and small evil spirits here. These evil spirits are called virtual, and they devour each other, constantly evolving, and eventually upgrading. For a stronger virtual. And the ones that I encountered before are the lowest level virtuals. Fighting all the way to this point, I and the little antelope must have stepped into a realm with a stronger virtual existence. No wonder the 2 big birds did not dare to come in. No wonder so many virtuals suddenly appeared around. Naruto finally understood everything. At this moment, he was in a complicated mood, and 1,000 words were stuck in his throat. However, now there is no time for him to have unnecessary emotions, because the huge monster behind him is a big emptiness that is above the ordinary emptiness. And the spiritual energy aggregate condensed in its mouth is a powerful virtual flash. If you are hit by this thing, it is estimated that with your current strength, you will be killed immediately. As soon as this idea came up, Naruto noticed that a strong coercion suddenly hit behind him. Flicker, fired. At this moment, Naruto's whole body was tense, and he pulled the Diker's body to dodge around at the fastest speed. Boom! The sound of the explosion sounded from the side, accompanied by a strong Yuhi light and vibration. Naruto's mind temporarily fell into a blank. He almost thought he had been killed. When he came back to his senses, he found that he had already rolled to the ground, and the body of the Diker was knocked to the other side by the shock wave of the explosion. Call. Fortunately, it seems to have escaped. Naruto looked at the huge pit that was blasted open by this phantom flash in place, with lingering fears. However, before he could react, the big phantom once again condensed a Yuhi-colored phantom flash and bombarded Naruto and the Diker. Naruto's body flickered, avoiding its bombardment. But the little antelope is no longer able to dodge. Facing Dashu, it has no strength to dodge. 865. Upgrade all the way. Dashu's virtual flash fell towards the Diker at a thunderous speed. If it was hit like this, the Diker would absolutely disappear under this energy bombardment. At this moment, Naruto suddenly appeared in front of it, facing the lightning-like flash of Yuhi's color, and the Uzumaki in his hands was on the top of his head. Boom! In the next instant, the virtual flash slammed into Naruto's knife. Naruto's hands sank suddenly, and he was almost sent flying by this force. However, behind him is the antelope, the little friend who accompanied him all the way. He must not take a half step back. Yuhi's flash of color collided violently with the knife in Naruto's hand. Naruto only felt that there was a big mountain pressing down on his head, making it unbearable for people to bear this force. Damn, it's just a mere flickering. How could I be defeated by you? Naruto let out a roar, and a strong soul force suddenly rose from his body. The blade of Uzumaki in his hand began to emit a faint white light. The flickering energy was firmly blocked out. Boom! With a muffled sound, Naruto held the knife in both hands. The light above the blade flickered, and the next moment he suddenly swung forward, splitting the Yuhi-colored phantom in half. Immediately afterwards, before that Daxu could react, Naruto chased after the victory. Using the power that was constantly surging in his body jumped high, and he immediately reached the top of Daxu's mask. He raised Uzumaki and slashed at Daxu's mask from top to bottom. The white knife light flashed by, and the next moment, Dashu's head was directly divided into 2 halves from the middle. Naruto's body fell back to the ground, panting heavily. The big virtual body slowly turned into an energy light and disappeared in an instant. Are you all right, little antelope? Naruto then came to the little antelope, and when he saw it sitting on the spot and staring at him, he couldn't help but reach out and touch its head. At this moment, even if Naruto already understands that this is where the void is, and the Diker is also the void of this place, he has no intention of killing it, because it has been with him until now, supporting each other along the way. He had already developed feelings for it. What if it is false? Naruto doesn't care about this kind of stuff. At this moment, a huge energy in the air suddenly gathered on Naruto's body, and white light shone from him. Is this the energy obtained after defeating Dashu? This time the progress is really a bit big. Not only does he have a weapon, but the power in his body has doubled many times more than before. Originally, it was difficult to deal with some ordinary virtuals by myself, but now I can kill the existence of big virtuals. This is also thanks to the Uzumaki, transformed by Kina. However, in this way, is he already a god of death? And the knife in his hand should be in existence like Zanpakuto. I didn't expect that China would be transformed into his own Zanpakuto, which is really surprising. However, Naruto felt that this was nothing. Anyway, it was a good thing. After a brief exchange with Kina just now, he had already realized that Kina's power seemed to have changed in some way, and it was no longer as weak as before. And even being able to incarnate into such a powerful Zanpakuto to help himself, is this because the residual spiritual energy of the Ten Tails has been absorbed? While thinking about this series of changes, Naruto pulled the Diker up and planned to leave this place. Uzumaki, in his hand was changed from Kinai. It did not disappear after the battle, but was automatically worn on the body, and even the scabbard appeared on the waist. Grim Reaper. This is really strange. He didn't go through death, he didn't go through Liushin Street, and he didn't go to Jingling Court to practice, but he summoned Zanpakuto, and he was still fighting with the virtual circle. It seems that he is also an outlier. After knowing that he had come to the virtual circle of death, Naruto's previous memories also flooded up. He had watched the 3 major migrant workers, but he only had a general understanding of the world in it, and he did not study it in depth. Moreover, after so long, many details have long been forgotten. What's more, after these worlds have their own time, they will definitely change. The previous plot can only be used as a reference. Therefore, since Naruto now knows what kind of world this is, he plans to formulate a set of training plans, fortunately, to survive better in this virtual circle. This is a world where the weak and the strong eat, and there are eating and being eaten everywhere, and Naruto knows that his current state must be all kinds of virtual delicacies in the virtual circle, so the future road will definitely be very dangerous. Therefore, he has to move forward carefully and slowly, and must not step into other fields at will, otherwise it will be bad if he encounters a behemoth that he cannot deal with. And this area seems to be in line with his current strength level, and it is also a good choice to find opponents to practice here. So, Naruto and Diker embarked on the road of cultivation again. Time passed quickly, the moon in the sky was full and missing and full. I don't know how much time has passed, and the situation in this area has been figured out by Naruto. After so long, Naruto has found that this place is still on the periphery of the virtual circle, the scope of low-level virtual activities. Occasionally, 1 or 2 high-level big virtuals will come out to forage, but in general, Naruto is the most famous. The strength of walking here has no problem. Moreover, with Zanpakuto, Naruto becomes more convenient when fighting. Uzumaki can cut off the virtual that could not be beaten with his fists. Even if more than a dozen heads appeared at once, he could handle it with ease. In this case, Naruto's strength is also advancing by leaps and bounds, and at the same time, he has finally determined an ability he has, to absorb the defeated virtual energy into his own spiritual power. I have to say that this is a very pervert ability, but there is also a limitation. If the virtual level of the beheaded is too low, he will no longer be able to get any effective energy. Therefore, Naruto must find his own strength. To be close, or to challenge the virtual who is stronger than yourself, in order to enhance your power. During this period of time, except for the big virtual, other ordinary virtual can no longer enhance his spiritual power, and his strength has reached the level of being able to fight against a big virtual without fear. 866. Fall into the ground. In addition to this, the progress of the Diker is also very impressive. Originally, its strength seems to be still at the level of ordinary emptiness, but soon it can be comparable to the level of big emptiness, but its shape does not seem to have happened. The big change, it still looks like an antelope, perhaps, its level has not yet reached the level of Daxu. Naruto thought so, but the Diker was still as docile and obedient to him as always. It carried Naruto on its back and became his mount faithfully. When Naruto was injured, it would lick the wound for him. Naruto was tired. It would carry him and let him rest. Naruto was very moved, and it was a great honor to be able to meet such a kind Shu in such a sinister place as the Shu Circle. Little antelope, although you are Shu, I will definitely go all the way with you, we will be best friends and partners. I really hope you can become stronger and become a high-level Daxu. Then we will meet again. It's not bad to learn together. Naruto laughed while hugging the neck of the Diker. The Diker seemed to be able to understand Naruto's words. It nodded heavily, and a ray of light flashed in its eyes. Then let's go to a place where our opponents are more powerful. We must all make rapid progress, Naruto said while touching its head. After knowing that this is an imaginary circle in the God of Death, Naruto knows that he is now a half-ass compared to the real God of Death. Although there is Zanpakuto, it seems that there is still 1,000 miles away from Shikai and D's solution, and he is right. The most critical death skills, slashing, ghost ways, white fights, and footwork are all ignorant. The only thing he can rely on is some of his previous combat experience. However, Naruto is not a novice who knows nothing. At least he used to be a peerless powerhouse. He has been exposed to the ultimate power of the world. After groping, I gradually mastered some methods and techniques. Example, after the power in the body, that is, the spiritual power, is injected into the Zanpakuto, which can make the Zanpakuto sharper and can cut through the enemy's solid defense. After compressing the spiritual power under his feet, he also found that his speed became very fast, and he could easily avoid ordinary attacks. With these two skills, Naruto feels that he has made some progress, and the future is no longer so unknown and scary. The front is still the same environment, the surroundings are dim, only the moon above the head emits a faint light. Naruto rode the Diker all the way, and watched carefully with Zanpakuto in his hand. This is the sword transformed by the power of Kinai, which contains her powerful power, and after getting this sword, Naruto has found that all the energy that he can absorb after defeating the virtual is also because of her strength. Therefore, how to develop Chinai's power and how to combine this power with one's own power will become the focus of future cultivation. The practice of Zanpakuto is to communicate with the sword. Naruto closed his eyes and wanted to enter the space of consciousness to find Kina, but he found that he couldn't do it, and there was no way to go in and chat with Kina. Don't you have this qualification right now? For a time, Naruto couldn't figure it out. No way, let's talk about cultivating one's own spiritual power first. One person and one sheep are walking in the desert. They can't tell the direction, and they don't know where they are now. They only feel the strange roars and the looming spiritual pressure from the surrounding environment. Fortunately, although Naruto's spiritual power is not very strong, the water quality of perceiving spiritual power is not bad, and he can clearly feel the bursts of spiritual pressure around him. Therefore, if there is any powerful guy around, he will be able to find it immediately. One person and one sheep didn't know how long they had gone, and some low levels thus around seemed to be a little afraid of their spiritual pressure, so they didn't appear, and Daxu was very rare in this outer circle. They didn't meet many opponents. Just when Naruto felt a little bored, suddenly there were some faint sounds. Naruto listened. Boom, boom. It seems to be the sound of battle. Naruto was sure that he heard it right, and out of curiosity, he rode the Diker all the way out, but he searched around for a while and found nothing. Where are these sounds coming from? Naruto looked up and looked around. Suddenly, he looked down at his feet, only to hear a light chirping of the antelope, and the sand under his feet began to spin and flow at an extremely fast speed. This is quicksand. Naruto was subconsciously startled, but he found that the surrounding horizon suddenly rose, and the bodies of himself and the diker sank to the bottom all of a sudden. Little antelope, Naruto shouted anxiously, and the diker under him had been submerged to the top of his head by the yellow quicksand. But at this time, there is nowhere to focus, and there is no way to escape. If only it could fly. Naruto thought so, but unfortunately, he can't do it now. In a panic, the sinking speed of one person and one sheep suddenly accelerated, and even Naruto was drowned in an instant. There is darkness in front of you. Naruto felt a chill in his heart. But soon, there was suddenly empty space around him, and he felt that his body was falling rapidly. Boom, boom. There were two muffled sounds of the ground, accompanied by the chirping of the antelope, and Naruto was smashed to pieces. The surroundings were dim and the light was weak. Naruto hugged the diker and asked, "Are you all right?" The diker rubbed his head against his chest, indicating that he didn't have to worry, and Naruto let out a slight sigh, but fortunately it was fine. At this moment, there was a sudden roar in Naruto's ears. There were also flashes of light in the dim line of sight ahead. That's where the sound of the battle came from, Naruto murmured. He struggled to get up and walked slowly with the diker. The surrounding light is dim, but at least Naruto can still see some outlines. It seems to be a huge underground space with countless stone jinchuriki column around it, just like a forest. And the light of those battles came from not far from the front, and at the same time, Naruto also noticed the powerful Reiatsu. Here, it does not seem to be an easy place. 867. Great adversity. The huge spiritual pressure seems to be the existence of the big virtual level, and there are more and more such spiritual pressures approaching around. The situation is not good. Naruto looked around, and suddenly saw countless pairs of glowing eyes appearing in the dim space, exuding a terrifying aura. The diker around him suddenly tensed up, and it also realized that the situation was bad. After a while, the countless pairs of eyes slowly approached, and Naruto quickly saw the outlines of those guys. All of them were Daxu with a height of tens of meters. Woo! Daxu made a mournful whimper, which made people panic. But Naruto is no longer in the mood to be afraid. He pulled out the Uzumaki from his waist and held it tightly in his hands. 1, 2, 3. Naruto's rough count. Damn it. There are actually dozens of big virtuals, big and small, surrounding him and the antelope, and what is even more terrifying is that there are countless pairs of eyes approaching behind these big virtuals. What the hell is this place? Naruto's scalp went numb. Not far away, the sound of battle is still coming. Naruto can hear it clearly. It seems to be the voice of a girl. There are still people in this place, and it seems that they are fighting these big virtuals. What a complicated situation. However, obviously he has no time to think about other things, because the dozens of Daxu surrounding Naruto are condensing Yuhi-colored energy spheres in their mouths. These energy spheres are all aimed at Naruto and Diker. A dense peace. Flee. Naruto pulled the Diker and flashed to the side. At the same time, those Yuhi-colored phantom flashes also slammed down, causing huge explosions in place. Naruto pulled the little antelope dangerously to avoid the virtual dodge attack of these big virtuals, and ran all the way. However, because he was surrounded by them, it didn't take long for him to avoid it. Fight! Naruto and Diker looked at each other. He clenched the Uzumaki tightly, and slashed towards the one closest to him. Kai! Although these Daxu had strong spiritual power, their movements were slow and their intelligence was low. Naruto ripped apart one of the Daxu's bodies with a single knife. The Diker's body turned into a green light, and it knocked down a Daxu with a bang. Naruto then jumped to the Daxu's mask, and Zanpakuto in his hand pierced its masked head fiercely. A burst of energy flowed into Naruto's body. He felt the growing spiritual power at this time, and a crazy idea suddenly occurred in his heart. Didn't you always want to kill these big virtuals and let your power keep escalating? At this moment, there are so many great voids here. If you kill them all by yourself, will you be able to get a lot of spiritual power all at once? Thinking of this, he couldn't help laughing out loud, so wouldn't he be able to level up quickly? Boom boom boom. The phantom flashes behind his body kept chasing him, destroying everything along the way, but Naruto's figure moved quickly in it, avoiding it dangerously every time. The body of the antelope turned into a green light, constantly shuttled in the big virtual, and they launched a fierce chase with this group of big virtual. And while Naruto was escaping, he was also looking for an opportunity to suddenly attack those who were left alone. These slow-moving giants can often be destroyed by Naruto just by slashing their vital parts. Kai. The sound of tearing sounded, and Naruto chopped down a big virtual again. The little antelope seems to know Naruto's purpose. It has always been by his side to protect him. Once there is a danger that Naruto can't avoid, its body will turn into a green light and smash the big ghost. For a time, one person and one sheep actually made a bloody path in this forest full of emptiness. And Naruto has more and more spiritual power, and his strength continues to grow. After a while, Naruto found that there were more and more big phantoms around, and the attacks of phantom flashes became more and more intensive, and he didn't have time to attack at all. The Diker also became unable to move an inch. Oh no, this will not be Daxu's lair. Why are there more and more of these phantoms, and now there are hundreds of them all around? I was almost in the middle of a big virtual army. Even if you are several times stronger, you can't be safe in Daxu's army, right? What's more, now? But the only thing that comforted him was that he was getting closer and closer to another place where he was fighting. He had seen bursts of white light blooming there, and he could clearly feel that kind of spirit. The pressure is not the same as these big virtuals around it. Is there a god of death here? But it doesn't look like it, because that power is not similar to his own power, and his own Zanpakuto should be the power of the god of death, right? If that power is not the power of death, what is it? With doubts, Naruto's figure was dodging again and again in the phantom. He suddenly found that in this oppression of life and death, his speed became faster and faster, and the method of moving under his feet also changed from the original constant jumping. It became almost flickering. Concentrate your spiritual power under your feet. Then, instant explosion. The body suddenly moved forward at a speed that surpassed the past, and the surrounding pictures changed positions almost instantly. However, Naruto found that he was still very unskilled in such an explosion of spiritual power, and every time it took a lot of spiritual power. Fortunately, he took advantage of this time and kept slashing the surrounding Daxu. There is no risk of collapse. Moreover, under the circumstance that there are more and more big voids around, the Diker has gradually become exhausted, and Naruto is anxious. In this mood, he picked up the Diker and started a quick escape. The surrounding explosions continued, and the fire was flickering. Naruto threw himself into the surrounding environment with all his heart, carefully feeling the pressure of the virtual flash that kept coming, and made a series of flashes under his feet. Swish, swish, swish. Naruto's body flickered uncertainly, but because he was holding the Diker, his flickering speed became slower, and he was accidentally hit by an oncoming phantom flash. Fortunately, in the crisis, he quickly raised his Zanpakuto to block. With a loud bang, Naruto's body was knocked out and slammed into a big rock Jinchuriki column. 868. The light shines. All the internal organs have a feeling of being shattered, although Naruto does not know whether he really has internal organs in the state of the soul. He climbed up with difficulty, spit blood fiercely, and saw that the little antelope beside him was fine, so he was slightly relieved. However, obviously now is not the time to worry about others, because as he flew upside down on the ground, the surrounding Daxu had already surrounded him. No gaps are revealed. Looking at the big bluffs on the top of the head biting towards him, Naruto couldn't help but think of the scene when he encountered a group of zombies. How could Lao Su be eaten by you guys? Get out of the way. Under the strong desire to survive, Naruto did not know where a powerful spiritual pressure erupted, and he was surrounded by Zanpakuto and his body. Surrounded by a thick white light, it exudes bursts of soft and cool white light. Naruto poured all the spiritual power of his body into Uzumaki, and for a while, Uzumaki's blade suddenly exuded an extremely dazzling brilliance. This ray of light forced the surrounding Daxu movements to stop. Uzumaki in both hands and spinning frantically. At the same time, countless sword chi suddenly appeared on the knife, and scattered towards the surrounding like overwhelming. For a time, with Naruto as the center, there seemed to be a storm of sword chi in the surrounding space. The white sword chi took Naruto as the center and launched an indiscriminate flying shot around. Chi chi chi. Countless white sword chi flew out from Naruto's sword, and the surrounding area was even brightened by this burst of white light. Stone Jinchuriki column is crushed. Daxu's body was penetrated by continuous blade chi. The place seemed to be caught in a storm, and only Naruto's vertical and horizontal sword chi remained. After a long time, Naruto finally stopped. At this time, within a range of tens of meters around him, the dozens of giants surrounding him almost disappeared, and they were smashed by his knife. Call, call, call. Naruto stood on the spot with his knives in both hands, gasping for breath, his chest heaving and agitating like a bellows. In the body, the spiritual power in the body is almost completely consumed. Naruto's eyes turned slightly, and the surrounding Daxu seemed to be startled by the massacre just now, and he was hesitant to go forward at this time. But Naruto himself knew that the explosion just now was the end of a strong arrow, killing dozens of Daxu at once. This is already the most powerful explosion at this stage. Next, he really can only let it be slaughtered. Little antelope, you, hurry up and run away. Take advantage of now, maybe, there is still a chance, cough. Naruto stretched out his hand and gently stroked the head of the Diker, his eyes softly said. His own power has exploded, and no miracles can happen next, so why not let the Diker escape? Hope he can get stronger all the way and avenge himself. It's just a pity that my wish has not been fulfilled, I'm really not reconciled. Looking at Naruto's eyes, the Diker didn't move. It opened its mouth to bite Naruto's clothes, threw him back, and then leapt away. Naruto was on its back, feeling the sound of the wind around him. He was waiting for the surrounding spiritual power to condense, but found that after a long time, no spiritual power had gathered on his body. It's really strange, can't I absorb energy now? If the energy of the dozens of great voids that were killed just now were gathered all at once, he would soon be able to recover his combat power, or even go a step further, right? However, this time, Naruto seemed to have run out of luck, and he was powerless to stay on the back of the Diker. Him was Yuhi who kept flashing, and the surrounding ground burst into bursts of explosions. The Diker carries Naruto through many crises. Boom! With a loud noise, the Diker was finally swept away by the aftermath of the virtual flash, and it and Naruto's body slammed into the stone Jinchuriki column on the side. Boom! Naruto fell to the ground, his eyelids felt heavy and heavy. On the ground, the footsteps of those Daxu getting closer and closer, death is so close at this moment. The Diker climbed up with difficulty, it stopped beside Naruto, and wanted to carry Naruto back to escape, but it seemed to be exhausted, tried to move Naruto, but no longer had the strength. It looked down at Naruto, then looked up at the surrounding Daxu, and couldn't help but let out a crisp scream. Leaning down, the Diker chose to lean beside Naruto, with his head still on his chest, quietly motionless. It is with him in the face of imminent death. Little antelope, you. Naruto noticed its movements, and an indescribable mood rose in his heart. Although it is a ghost, it has more delicate emotions than humans. At this juncture of life and death, it chose to meet death with itself. Who said that emptiness is an evil spirit incarnated by desire? Who said that emptiness is an evil existence that only knows how to devour? At this moment, Naruto's concept of emptiness has been completely overturned. No matter which world, no matter what race, no matter whether it is alive or dead, the only constant is the most sincere emotion in this world. This kind of emotion can make two creatures who are completely different from the same kind linked together, close and inseparable. Suddenly, a faint white light emerged from Naruto, and at the same time, a layer of green light appeared on the Diker's body. The two rays of light gradually surrounded them. In the light, Naruto and the Diker were leaning against each other with their eyes closed. However, they did not know that the white light on Naruto was constantly intertwined with the green light of the Diker. At this moment, the interweaving of the two rays of light seems to have a sacred atmosphere in this chaotic space, quiet and peaceful, but full of infinite mysterious temperament. Suddenly, the surrounding Daxu seemed to have noticed something terrible, and they all began to retreat a little bit around. The terrifying low roars in their mouths also became farther and farther away. What exactly is going on? Naruto opened his tired eyes diligently and looked around, but found that he was surrounded by a white and green light, and the surrounding scene became blurred. Do you still have consciousness? Those big virtuals, didn't they eat themselves? With such a mood, Naruto finally passed out. 869. Nelly L. In a daze, Naruto woke up, and there was a black sky in his eyes. The moon in the sky looked so dazzling. Where is this place? Seems to be back on the ground. Naruto shook his head, trying to make himself more awake. Suddenly, he felt that his head seemed to be lying in an unusually soft place, soft with a hint of warmth. Suddenly, a pair of emerald green eyes appeared in Naruto's line of sight, and the owner of these emerald green eyes was a beautiful beauty. Naruto was suddenly startled, and the next moment he suddenly sat up from the ground. What's going on? Who are you? Naruto stared at the beautiful woman in front of him with wide eyes. There is a desert around, is this the place before falling into the Great Void Group? But what happened to this beauty in front of me? Her green pupils exuded a kind of innocent and pure gaze, and only some dark green cloth strips were used to cover her shame. A pair of angry and upright twin peaks are so conspicuous that Naruto can't help but look up, while her slender thighs are sitting on the ground together, with the mark of yuhi on the thighs. It seems that she was just lying on these thighs just now. Naruto was taken aback. However, when he looked at the person in front of him, he felt that the more he looked, the more familiar he became, and the more he looked, the more he felt that he had seen it before. Nelly L. Naruto blurted out suddenly. At this time, the beautiful woman in front of Naruto, when she heard Naruto's exclamation, couldn't help tilting her head, and murmured in doubt, Nelly L. That's right. This is Nelly L. Naruto definitely remembered correctly, the first 30th blade among the gods of death, Nelly L. In the original book, she appeared as a little lowly as soon as she appeared. In fact, she became a child because she was attacked by another person, resulting in a large loss of spiritual power, but when she burst out with real power, she turned into a beautiful beauty, but has considerable strength. And the beauty in front of me with only some cloth covering her shyness is exactly the person in Naruto's impression. The pure and flawless blue eyes on the pure and beautiful face, and the two yuhi-colored sunburn marks under the eyes. All of this made Naruto even more sure of her identity. Etc. She has it on her head. Antelope mask. Is it? Naruto suddenly realized a truth that he never realized. Little antelope, he called tentatively. Nelly Lu suddenly opened her small mouth and gave a soft response, and stretched out her head affectionately, and gently rubbed Naruto's chest with her fair and tender cheeks. Her eyes were full of joy. Forehead. Naruto almost fainted, didn't he? It turned out that the little antelope that had been following him turned out to be the 30th blade in the original book, Nelly L. This is a character so powerful that even a captain-level death god can't compare. Moreover, after she actually became a human being, and in such an intimate way to bask on his chest. At this moment, Naruto was really amazed. You are really a Diker. Naruto looked at her again and confirmed. Nelly L nodded slightly, with a cute smile on her face, stretched out her hand, and touched Naruto awkwardly. After groping for a while, her expression relaxed slightly. Little antelope, I didn't expect you to be the 30-blade Nellie L. Naruto looked at her in surprise and joy and said, so, we were surrounded by Daxu before, did you rescue me? A puzzled expression appeared on Nellie L's face. She kept looking at him with her head tilted, her eyes were pure, and she murmured a few words repeatedly, Nellie L. Nellie L. Yeah, you are Nellie L. Naruto laughed. I'm Nellie L. Just now, I pulled you out. Nellie L said incoherently. It seemed that speaking was a little difficult for her. Naruto frowned slightly, thinking of her previous actions, and immediately understood in his heart. It seems that during the period of his coma, the Diker must have evolved to the state of humanoid broken face. But because it was only at the level of Daxu before, she seemed to be not very familiar with the language. Unexpectedly, I caught up with the period when she just evolved into a broken face. Wrong. Thinking of this, Naruto immediately thought of another very important thing. Although the plot of the God of Death in his memory has been blurred, the major events in it are still clear. Isn't the virtual breaking of the face done by Aizen using the power of Benyu? Before this, there has never been a situation where the mask was opened in the virtual circle. And, more importantly, Nellie L became a faceless face long before the plot started, and she actually witnessed her growth and face breaking all the way. In this way, the time she is in now is in the did the plot start very early? Or, is his appearance change these plots? However, how did the Diker turn into a broken face? Could it be that during this time, Aizen came? That's not right either. If Nailu turns faceless, then it's impossible for Aizen to not take her away, and it's impossible for him and her to be so safe now, right? Looking at the innocent-looking Nellie L in front of her, Naruto decided to have a good communication with her. Little antelope, do you remember what happened before? Can you tell it completely? Naruto put his hand on her shoulder and asked her very seriously. Nellie L blinked her blue eyes, and her beautiful brows frowned slightly, as if she was thinking. Naruto waited for a long time before she finally spoke in jerky words. Before me, suddenly, became the same body as you. Strength is very strong. I defeated those guys, you brought it from there. Naruto understood her words and asked again, then how did you become like this? I seem to feel your power, enter my body, feel good, warm. I want to protect you. Always protect you. It's become like this. 870, Night 1. After listening to her intermittent words, Naruto probably understood the whole story. It seems that the broken face of the Diker was influenced by his own power. Is it her own power that changed her power? The face-breaking transformation is also the death of the phantom power. So, the bursts of light at that time were because of the combination of his own Reaper power and her phantom power. Did you make her evolve into a broken face? But her previous strength level was only the level of the Great Void. It was so easy to evolve into a broken face. Naruto looked at Nellie L's whole body carefully, as if to see through her whole body. Nellie L didn't have any strange reaction either, she just sat in front of him like that, letting him watch, while her blue eyes stared at Naruto. Suddenly, a happy smile appeared on her face, and she said, finally, are just like you. Naruto was stunned for a moment. Afterwards, Nellie L stood up again, turned slightly in front of Naruto, and then pressed her body down in Naruto's direction. Naruto was slightly startled, only to see her majestic twin peaks approaching his cheeks quickly. Before he could react, his face was already surrounded by a soft touch. Small, Diker. Naruto was covered by her EPUB breasts, so she couldn't hear what she said. Nellie L didn't care at all, instead she pressed Naruto's body firmly, and threw him on the desert. A pair of jade hands tightly hugged Naruto's head and pressed it to her chest. She exclaimed with infinite joy, my body has become so brisk, it seems that it is easier to get close to you like this. So comfortable. The sweet and greasy voice made Naruto a little unbearable, and this little antelope didn't seem to be enlightened at all. Her knowledge level seems to be still at the previous level, and she is not at all clear about the situation after she has evolved into a broken face. She is now a complete beauty. Call it a goddess. Naruto felt the soft body pressed on his body, and remembered the scene where he was always hugging closely with the Diker before, and couldn't help but feel very weird. At this moment, a clear female voice suddenly came from the side. "Hey, what are you two doing?" Naruto was startled again. He hurriedly pulled his head out of Nellie L's chest, opened his eyes and saw a girl walking towards him not far away. The girl has short purple hair, a death tyrant's costume unique to the god of death, a short knife around her waist, black skin, and a pretty face. "Yichi of Siphon Yuan," Naruto exclaimed again. The image of Yaiki was deeply rooted in people's hearts, and he recognized him at a glance. "Huh, you actually know me," the girl came over and asked strangely. "I don't remember where I saw you." At this time, Nellie Lu was still holding Naruto on top of him, and when Yi came over, she just looked up at her suspiciously. "Ah, I've heard of it before. You're a member of the big family." Naruto hurriedly made a haha to cover up. "Oh, so you are also from the Soul Society. Sure enough, you are the god of death." Yi was slightly overjoyed when he heard the words, and then asked again, "Why are you in this sinister virtual circle? If this lady saves the two of us, we will all die." If you say that, you were the one who fought against the great voids under the ground before." Naruto looked at Nellie L in surprise after hearing the words. "Little antelope, what the hell is going on?" After a long time, Naruto finally understood everything from the sudden appearance of Yi and the Diker who had suddenly turned into a face. It turned out that before Naruto exhausted his strength before he was unconscious, he hugged the Diker. At that moment, the thoughts of the two were combined. The power turned into a god of death, and instantly turned into a broken face. And after she turned into a broken face, her strength increased wildly, and Dashu who was present could hardly reach her. She quickly killed Naruto on her back, but after passing the place where Yi fought, she saw Yi. As soon as she was under siege, she immediately rescued her. With the two of them, after tossing and turning a few times, they finally walked out of the ground and came to the ground. But just now, Yi came back after investigating the surrounding situation, and saw that Naruto had woken up and was playing with Nellie L, so he called them out. However, from Yaiki's mouth, Naruto also discovered that the current level of knowledge in Nellie L's mind does not seem to be high. She seems to not know much about her current human form, and she does not know her name. Talk, but not very fluent yet. Naruto noticed this just now, but in general, it was thanks to the Diker that he escaped from the dead this time. Her broken face is definitely a good thing for Naruto. Figuring out these problems, Naruto finally let out a long sigh of relief. He held Nellie L's shoulders, looked at her seriously and said, "You will be called Nellie L from now on, and I will call you Nellie L. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, you can call me Naruto in the future." Nailu's expression was slightly startled. When she heard Naruto's words, she understood, nodded heavily, and said happily, "My name is Nailu, you are Naruto, we will always be together, hee." After she finished speaking, she rushed up again, rubbing her head against Naruto's chest. Then he raised his head and looked at Naruto with a hopeful look. Naruto was stunned for a moment, then immediately reacted, laughed, and reached out and touched her head. Nailu narrowed her eyes slightly, with a cute expression that she enjoyed very much. "It's really eye-opening," Yi let out a sigh. "I never thought that Shu would actually turn into a human, and Zanpakuto, it's even more incredible to get along so well with the god of death." Naruto looked at Yaiki, smiled and said, "This is also very miraculous to me, but I hope you can keep this a secret for me." He was thinking if Nailu's situation was discovered by the people of the Death God realm, if they do, they will definitely be arrested for testing, right? After all, during this period, Nailu seemed to be the first to break the face. 871. Shunpo. Well, Nailu saved me. In order to repay her kindness, I won't tell this bizarre thing. Yi nodded in agreement. After this period of conversation and observation, Naruto has come to the conclusion that just judging from Yi's teenage appearance and youthful look, he may have crossed into the early days of the God of Death. At this time, Aizen should not have had any involvement in the virtual circle, and even he was still a child. So at this time, under the influence of her own power, Nailu has completed the evolution to the broken face, which is definitely something that can make a sensation in all walks of life. For Nailu's future safety, Naruto must not let this matter go out. If it weren't for the fact that Yaiki was a good person from the original book, Naruto would even have the urge to kill someone. Nailu is a partner who has accompanied her along the way and supports each other. She is her dearest person in this world. She will never allow her to be in any danger. After figuring out what happened to Nailu, Naruto chatted with Yoichi next. Yi asked, Naruto, why did you come to this virtual circle? And I think your Zanpakuto can't even do it with Shikai, it is too dangerous to come into this virtual circle. Besides, which division's death god are you? Naruto heard this, he hurriedly laughed and said, actually, I don't know how I got in. As for which team I belong to, I belong to the second team. He made a nonsense. Oh, people from the second division, I'm in the secret mobile team. To be honest, I don't know much about the people from other divisions. Yi stuck out his tongue and laughed. Hidden Mobile Squad. I heard that it is very powerful. Everyone there is strong, and the speed is very fast. Naruto hurriedly flattered and changed the topic. It's not as powerful as you said. When Yi heard Naruto's praise, Yuhi slapped Yuhi's face a little embarrassed. Naruto sighed secretly in his heart. Yi is still just a little girl after all, easy to fool. He didn't want her to know that he was not actually a person from the Soul Society, nor was he a formal god of death, but a half-hearted monk. If you let the guys in the world of death know, it is estimated that they will probably come to study their own, right? So, now that he made a random excuse to perfunctory, he didn't believe that Yi really went back to find the second team to find his information, right? The two chatted for a while, and then Naruto asked, Yaiki, are you here alone? Speaking of this issue, I forgot one thing. My companion is waiting for me elsewhere. Now I am lost and can't find it. Naruto, will you accompany me to find a companion? And by the way, we can go back together. Yi suddenly requested. This is no problem. Anyway, Nailu and I have nothing to do for the time being. Naruto readily agreed, but made another condition. After you find your partner, I won't go to meet. I can't go back to the Soul Realm with you for the time being. I have to continue cultivating here with Nailu until I'm strong enough to go back. Do you want to stay here forever? It's so dangerous here, I think it's better to forget it. You can also practice when you go back to the Soul Realm. He goes back. Naruto shook his head and smiled. Seeing that he was unable to speak, Yi nodded worriedly and respected his choice. Strength is actually not much stronger than Naruto's. She is only at the level of Master Shikai, but she must be much better than Naruto. Naruto has not even completed Shikai yet. In fact, Naruto's strength has also grown very rapidly. Since he was in the virtual circle, his strength has grown from nothing, from weak to strong, and the time that has passed is not long. A month or two. Speaking of which, in this short period of time, Naruto's strength has been strong enough to deal with Daxu, and he can also use some unique tricks, just like before using his whole body spiritual power to launch countless knife chi from the blade to use it. It's the best thing to do against Daxu. Moreover, he believes that as long as he continues to fight in this virtual circle, his strength will improve even more. However, despite this, Naruto still has some doubts, such as his own abilities. He was able to get energy upgrades by killing enemies before, but after the explosion in the big virtual group, he did not receive what a huge amount of energy, and after using that trick, he actually fainted. Now that I think about it carefully, Naruto also has some conjectures. Perhaps it is true that one's own ability can absorb the virtual energy after defeat, but there must be limitations, such as the inability to absorb a large number of different virtual energy in a short period of time. That is to say, there is a limit to the number of phantoms that one can absorb within a period of time. It seems that if you want to increase your strength in the future, you must also figure out your own ability. Not only that, but we must further develop some life-saving abilities, and we can't even run away every time we encounter danger. Regarding this point, he suddenly remembered the rapid movement similar to Shunpo when he was dodging around in the virtual flash of Daxu before. Your own speed becomes faster. With speed, you can become more flexible in battle in the future, and even escaping will have an additional guarantee. And now, I am afraid that Nailu, who has broken face, is much stronger than herself. How is this possible? Before her own strength was overshadowed by her, now that she has broken face, her strength has increased several times. It's really not easy for Naruto to catch up with her in a short period of time. However, the more places that need to be improved, the more motivated Naruto will be to become stronger. 872. Beyond. Next, Naruto and Nailu accompany Yi Yi to find a way out in the desert. After understanding, Yi Yi came to the virtual circle only because of the training mission, but he accidentally fell to the ground during the training, and was then besieged by a group of big virtual, so he was separated from his companions. Originally, it was possible to use the method of detecting spiritual pressure to find partners, but within this virtual circle, the spiritual pressure of the god of death could not be placed indiscriminately, otherwise it would attract a lot of emptiness. Therefore, in the virtual circle, the god of death is hiding its own spiritual pressure, which is generally difficult to find. Because of this, Yi Yi couldn't find his companions. However, she and her companions made an appointment to wait at the starting point of the virtual circle if they got separated. And at this starting point, Yi Yi once made a mark. Now, Naruto and Nailu are escorting her to that location. However, I heard that the place is full of crises and is full of many powerful great voids. In addition to the lowest level Killian, there are even more powerful Arthucus-level Great Voids, which are close to humanoid. It is illusory, and has high intelligence, and can even speak human language. Now the broken-faced Nailu should be at this level. If that's the case, then we should send you there, Naruto said with a smile after learning about the situation. Well, thank you, Yi Yi also responded with a smile. I am so lucky to meet people like you in the virtual circle, and I must thank you in the soul world if I have the opportunity in the future. Hey, as long as you don't talk about Nailu, that's the biggest reward for me. Naruto glanced at Nailu, who was following behind him with an innocent look, and said to her. Knight nodded heavily. Nailu smiled and rubbed her head against Naruto's chest. She was wearing only some chest protectors and short skirts that could cover her body, revealing her slender white hands, long legs, and her slender waist. This made the knight look very envious. The three chatted while walking, and Nailu's language became smoother and smoother on the way, during which Naruto taught her a lot of the most basic knowledge. Yaiki and Naruto became more and more familiar, and finally she found that Naruto was not very skilled in some of the professional skills of Reaper, and she taught him some skills on a whim. Chopping. It is the most basic skill of the Shinigami, which is not necessary for Naruto. He was also a strong man. Although he did not know much about Kendo, he knew an important basic principle, that is, fast, accurate, and ruthless. That is a combination of speed, angle, and power. In this regard, Naruto does not need to be taught at all. Moreover, the melee combat skills are not a problem for Naruto. What he is best at is close combat. Of course, apart from these two, footwork and ghosts are Naruto's weak points. In this regard, Yaiki seems to be very good at it, so on this road, Yaiki uses Shunpo's method and some low-level ghosts by the way. He taught Naruto how to use the Dao. This is undoubtedly a huge help for Naruto. From Yoichi's guidance, Naruto soon discovered that the movement method he had discovered before was actually the same as Shunpo's principle. It's just that Yaichi's teaching method is more professional, so even if Naruto doesn't need Yaichi's teaching, he can learn Shunpo by just fumbling on his own, but with her teaching, the stage of fumbling is omitted. Directly on the right track. Moreover, I have to say that Naruto is worthy of being a former powerhouse. Even though he was exposed to a completely different spiritual power from before, he actually learned Shunpo in just a short period of time. This surprised Yaiki, who didn't expect Naruto's talent to be so pervert. Swish. A figure flashed by, and Naruto instantly appeared behind Yaiki, reached out and patted her on the shoulder. But the next moment, he found that his arm had been lost, and Yi-Yi's figure was lost on the spot, and at the same time, there was a slight noise behind him. Swish. Yi-Yi appeared behind Naruto in an instant, accompanied by a chuckle. Naruto, it's not that easy for you to catch me. You must know that you have only just learned Shunpo. However, just as Yi-Yi's voice fell, she suddenly let out a soft cry. The figure of Naruto in front of her gradually faded, but suddenly solidified. Why hit me on the head? Yi-Yi said in shock and anger. Naruto laughed, ignoring her anger. Have I surpassed you? You pervert. Yi-Yi didn't expect his speed to be better than Naruto. Is he just a beginner? And who are you? I am Sifeng Yuan Yi. He has been famous for his speed since he was a child, but he is still not as fast as a beginner. He even hit him in the head. Really, pervert? Yi-Yi scolded, feeling extremely shocked by Naruto's pervert talent. Hee, this only shows that you are a good teacher. Naruto smiled and flattered when she saw her unacceptable expression. After all, Yi-Yi was really a teenage girl, with an immature mind. After hearing Naruto's compliment, the expression on her face became a little better. However, she is becoming more and more curious about Naruto. This guy is really amazing. Not only is he surrounded by a ghost who has become a god of death, but he is also a completely unacceptable evil genius. No, I don't believe you are really that powerful. Yi-Yi stared at Naruto in dissatisfaction. The frustration and unwillingness in her heart made her feel that she had to find something to overwhelm him. So she said again, I didn't use all my strength just now. Do you dare to do it again? I will never let you touch it. Oh, Naruto was slightly surprised, thinking to himself, she must have been very upset when she overwhelmed Yi-Yi on her footwork. Could it be that she was going to use her original secret technique? Sifeng Yuan footwork, that is a movement method that is faster and stronger than Shunbu. She is only this age, will it be possible? This made Naruto doubt the game in his heart. After all, Yi-Yi is still young now. However, I didn't expect that I could beat Yi-Yi in speed. This has to be said to be a very happy thing. Although this power is still immature Yi-Yi, it also makes him more about his future cultivation. Full of confidence. 873. Frolic. Are you ready? Naruto asked Yaiki with a smile. Yi-Yi stood in front of him and nodded solemnly. I'll never let you catch me this time. I'm going to use my greatest stunt. She spoke to Naruto seriously. Okay, then I'll wait and see. Naruto smiled slightly. Nailu on the side looked at the two of them curiously. As soon as Naruto's voice fell, Yi-Yi disappeared in front of him with a swoosh. Her Shunpo speed is indeed very fast, but Naruto's strength is not bad now, and her reaction can still keep up with her speed. Besides, after practice, he has already mastered Shunpo's skills. Can do it. Then, he also flickered for a while, and the figure chased out towards Yi-Yi. The figures of the two of them flickered on the flat ground, and Nailu stood there watching the two of you chasing after me, with a complicated look on her face. Naruto, I want to play with you too, she murmured. At this time, Naruto and Yaiki have flashed several times in an instant, and Naruto will soon be able to catch Yaiki. Yi-Yi didn't expect that Naruto's speed was still improving, and he was about to be unable to cope. It seems that the footwork of Sifeng Yuan is really used. But I am not familiar with this set of footwork, so I have little chance of success. However, she didn't want to lose to Naruto just like that. Unwilling, Yi Yi's whole body moved his spiritual power and concentrated on preparing to use that unique set of footwork. Call. Shake your body. Ah. However, Naruto heard a scream in his ear. Immediately afterwards, Yi Yi, who was preparing to flash forward, suddenly stumbled and fell forward. Naruto couldn't help but be startled, and he hurriedly stepped forward to stop her. Boom. Yaiki's body slammed into Naruto's chest, and Naruto hugged her. Naruto couldn't help feeling a strange feeling when his soft body came into his arms, but he quickly recovered, looked down at Yaiki who was hitting his chest, and asked softly, "Are you alright?" Yi Yi opened her eyes wide, and she suddenly felt a panic in her heart as she leaned against Naruto's arms. "No, it's fine." Yi Yi quickly pushed Naruto away and shouted. But as soon as she pushed him away, she whispered again, her body swayed slightly, and she almost fell to the ground. Naruto stepped forward to support her arm again, frowned, looked at her forehead and legs, and finally landed on her ankles. Yi Yi's face turned pale at this time, not because he was supported by Naruto or hugged by him, but because he tried to outsmart him, but he didn't expect the secret footwork to fail. This is really humiliating. She has the idea of wanting to go underground. Hey, you bastard, if you can't do it, you're still messing around, right? Naruto probably understood her situation at this time, and sighed helplessly. Cut, I want you to take care of it. I lost this time. I must win it back in the future. She pouted angrily. Naruto didn't expect Yi Yi to be so competitive when he was a child, and when he heard her angry words, he just smiled lightly. Humph! Yi Yi snorted in disapproval. Naruto crouched down and reached out to hold her tender little feet. Hey, what are you doing? Yi Yi was suddenly startled by his action, and fell to the ground at once. She screamed with a slight struggle. Don't move, I'll show you. Naruto grabbed her leg and took the shoes off her feet. I saw that the ankle of Yi Yi's left foot was slightly swollen. He squeezed it lightly, and Yi Yi let out a pained cry. It seems to be a strain. You are really trying so hard, isn't it just a competition? Naruto shook his head and rubbed her with his hands. You bastard, are you mocking me with this victorious attitude now? I don't need your mercy. Yaiki tried his best to retract his feet, but Naruto held him firmly in his hands, unable to break free. Gradually, Yi Yi stopped struggling. She sat on the ground, looked at Naruto who kept rubbing her little feet. A faint Yuhi dizziness appeared on her face. She suddenly felt a warm feeling in the injured area, which spread to the depths of her heart. After a while, Naruto finished rubbing her, looked up at her and said, "It seems that you can't move around until you recover." Yeah, really. Yi Yi looked dodged, and suddenly felt that Naruto's azure blue eyes were so deep, he actually had a feeling that he didn't dare to look at him. After Naruto finished speaking, he stood up, stretched out his hand to support her and put her on his back and said, "Because you have taught me so much, I will carry you on my back for the time being." Ah hello. I haven't agreed yet, bastard. Yi Yi shouted, but his body struggled, and he lay down on Naruto's back. Naruto greeted Nailu who was standing not far away. Nailu came over and saw Naruto carrying Yaiki on his back. She couldn't help asking, what happened to her? Naruto rolled his eyes at the knight. I am too brave. Humph, I want you to take care of it. Yi Yi quickly replied. Nailu nodded when she heard the words, and suddenly said, shall I carry her? Ah, no, this guy has a thick skin and can move his back. Yi Yi was embarrassed to hear it, and hurriedly rejected her kindness. Oh, Nailu had no choice but to nod when she heard the words. Naruto pretended to be angry and said, "It's so unreasonable that you are trying to be stubborn, and now you are bothering me." Cut. I'm just being unreasonable, idiot. Yi Yi looked at his head with his hands on his back. Don't knock me. You're welcome to knock me again. This girl is so naughty. Naruto was made speechless by her, and she turned her body upside down and feigned angrily, "Believe it or not, I'll spank your ass." How dare you? Yi Yi's face couldn't help but turn Yuhi after hearing this, and his arm was wrapped around Naruto's neck, be careful I strangle you. I'm a master at slaughtering for nothing. Naruto immediately waved his palm and patted her small buttocks. Lien Nilu's clear voice could be heard clearly. Ah! Yi screamed in shame and anger, covered his small buttocks with his hands, stared at Naruto with a look of shame and anger, and shouted, "You bastard, wait for you to return to the Soul Realm. I want you to look good. No, I want you to look good now." After finishing speaking, Yaiki tossed on Naruto's back, and Naruto was made to yell for a while. The voices of the two of them frolicking quietly spread out in this virtual circle. Nilu sighed. "Why don't you play with me?" 874. A powerful enemy appears. It was also very interesting that the three of Naruto were making noises along the way with Yi, who was not very quiet, on his back. Naruto also has a new understanding of Yaiki. In his impression, a mature Yaiki should be an elegant, calm and aura of a royal sister, but she was very naughty when she was a child, and she was very competitive. However, Yi was also very cute when she was a child, and it would be nice to be able to travel back to her childhood years. Naruto thought so. The three of them went all the way. Because Yi had made a mark before, they just had to follow the direction of the mark, so they were heading towards their destination almost in a straight line. On the way, I also encountered several virtual attacks, but all of them were easily cleaned up by Nilu. This also allowed Naruto to see some of Nilu's abilities. She has the same ability as herself to absorb the opponent's energy for her own use, and after she broke the face, her fighting style is also very capable, often just as soon as she is pulled out. With the slashing knife on her body, the opponent has already fallen. During this period of time, Nilu's strength is also growing rapidly. Naruto feels that her awareness and her awareness are getting bigger and bigger. It's not good to continue like this. Do you need Nilu's protection for a long time in the future? Therefore, he was eager to send Yi back home, and then pulled out to improve himself. However, he felt a little reluctant to part with it. After all, Yaiki was the real god of death. When she was by her side, she could teach herself some footwork and ghost ways, and when she was with her, Naruto felt very happy. It's like going back to when I was young. In this complicated mood, the three of them advanced a long distance. Although the surrounding is boundless desert, but Naruto now has the company of two beauties, and he does not feel lonely at all. Of course, he has not forgotten his mission. He must become stronger within a period of time, and then return to the power of Master Chaos to rescue those things that he cannot change. The moon in the sky is constantly changing, and the three of them don't know how many roads they have traveled. Finally, on a high dune, they stopped. Naruto, I feel a heavy spiritual pressure. In my natural memory, it seems that this place has been occupied by a powerful being. Ni reminded her, now that she is able to function normally speaking and communicating, there has been considerable progress in knowledge. Hearing her words, Naruto frowned slightly and asked Yi on his back, "How far is the place you said from here?" Yi's feet didn't seem to be healed yet. She sat on Naruto's back and estimated the next reply, "It should be almost within 100 miles. "Well, if that's the case, let's detour," Naruto said after pondering for a while. From Nilu's solemn expression, Naruto knew that the guy who occupied this place must be a very powerful character, and he couldn't fight against him with his current strength, and he was carrying a foot injury on his back. If the powerful guy Nilu is not an opponent, it would be really bad. After listening to Naruto's words, Yaiki and Nilu also obeyed his decision. They turned to leave. At this moment, Naruto's face was suddenly slightly startled, and his complexion couldn't help changing. "What's wrong?" Yi seemed to sense something was wrong, and hurriedly said, "Go." Naruto's figure flashed, and just as he was about to leave here, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him, blocking the way of the three. "Haha, I didn't expect that in addition to Shu, there is a god of death here. Today's harvest is really rich." A rough voice came from the mouth of a big man in front of Naruto. This big man is 3 or 4 times Naruto's height, and his arms are thicker than Naruto's thighs, but the most important thing is that his voice comes from under the humanoid skeleton mask on his face. It seems that this is a phantom, but it is different from ordinary phantoms. Although its phantom is in the same position on the chest as most phantoms, it can speak, and its momentum is not the same as ordinary phantoms. This is a big virtual at the level of Arcucas. The three Naruto couldn't help but be surprised. The speed of this big virtual is so amazing that Naruto doesn't have time to escape. Huh, you female, why did you take off the mask? Suddenly, this big hunch stared at Nailu in shock and anger. Nailu didn't speak, ignored him, just silently stopped in front of Naruto and pulled out Zanpakuto from her body. There's still Zanpakuto, the ape-shaped Daxu exclaimed in shock. What the hell is this guy? Is it a ghost or a death god? Hearing his constant questions, Nailu just said lightly, "Don't hurt the people behind me." However, when Dashu heard Nailu's words, he suddenly laughed wildly. The red Yuhi-colored eyes behind the mask were filled with fierce eyes. It's ridiculous. As the same kind, you actually protect two gods of death. Don't hurt them, Nailu emphasized again. The momentum on her body slowly rose, and a spiritual pressure belonging to the level of Aryukas spread out, and even Naruto felt that the surrounding air became very heavy. My own strength is still too weak. Nailu's spiritual pressure has already made me feel like I can't bear it anymore, and the spiritual pressure emanating from the Alcus-level Daxu on the opposite side seems to be stronger than Nailu's. Even stronger. Humph, it's really courting death. You are all my uncle's prey today. Yacho Cass roared angrily, and its body slammed into the three of Naruto with a bang. It doesn't use Shunpo. No tricks were used either. Just pure ramming over. But Naruto has a feeling that it is difficult to escape. Is this the suppression of different levels of spiritual pressure? Naruto bit Kiba, and at this critical moment, Nailu charged with Zanpakuto. Ding! Sound! Nailu's Zanpakuto slashed at Daxu's arm, but this Daxu's arm was as hard as steel, and the blade hit it with just bursts of intense sparks. Don't try to stop me! Dashu roared, his other hand clenched his fists and slammed it down at Nailu. Boom! With a muffled sound, Nailu raised her hand again to resist, but was hit by this powerful force and flew backwards. Boom! There was an explosion, and Nailu's body slammed into a sand dune, causing the sky to be filled with dust. 875. Cooperate. Nello. Naruto shouted worriedly. The big shoe stared at Naruto coldly, and Naruto suddenly felt that his whole body was shrouded in energy. You two gods of death, wait obediently by the side, don't try to run away. It laughed, and then rushed towards Nailu, who had just gotten up from the sand dunes. At this time, Nailu was a little unsupported by this blow. Seeing it rushed again, she hurriedly reminded Naruto and the two. Naruto, Yiki, this guy is dragged by me, you all hurry up and get out of here. Its strength unfathomable. Naruto and Yiki certainly wouldn't run away. Although they were deterred by this Achukas-level big phantom at this time, there was no fear on their faces. Along the way, did Naruto ever give up on the people around him? He knew that Nailu cared about him, but from another angle, how could Naruto let Nailu fight with such a dangerous guy at ease? Even if both sides are Achukas-level existences, even if his current strength is not able to intervene, he will not give up his principles because of this. If you can't beat it in normal times, you can run. But at this moment, Nailu is in danger, and Yi is also unable to enter the battle because of her injury. It is obviously impossible to escape. But if it's a fight, how do you start? His speed, strength and the opponent are obviously not on the same level. If you just use Shunpo to dodge, you may be able to stalemate for a while, but the opponent will definitely find an opportunity to kill it. Right at this moment, that Daxu slammed another punch on the Nailu Zanpadao. Nailu's whole body was shocked, she groaned, and her body flew out to the back again. If it weren't for the hardness of her slashing knife, I'm afraid it would break apart when she couldn't stand it. In terms of strength, Nailu is no match for that guy at all. Boom. Nailu's body flew upside down in Naruto's direction, and Naruto quickly reached out to catch her. At the same time, a powerful anti-shock force struck, and Naruto was almost knocked out. The anti-shock force alone is already so powerful. If you go up and get punched, I'm afraid it will be shattered to pieces, right? It's so powerful. Is this the gap between the levels? Naruto bit Kiba. He looked at Nailu, who was a little pale, and asked with concern, "Nailu, how are you?" "I'm fine." Nailu gently pushed Naruto away. "Hurry up and escape, I can block it." Looking at her graceful back standing in front of him, Naruto felt complicated. He was still too weak. "I never thought that I still need girls to protect myself now. I will never leave you alone." Naruto held Zanpakuto tightly, raising his aura to the strongest, looking at Nailu and said, "Even if I am not its opponent now, I should be able to contribute a little bit of strength." Saying that, he put Yi down from his back, and then rushed towards the big virtual regardless of everything. "No, dangerous!" Nailu and Yi both exclaimed, never expecting Naruto to be so reckless. The Ichukis-level Daxu sneered, "The god of death boy who is overcomprehensive. Let me show you how strong this uncle is." Boom! A strong spiritual pressure was released from its body, stronger than just now. Naruto suddenly felt a coercion in the surrounding air, and almost crushed himself to the ground, but he was someone who had seen the world after all. No matter how strong the opponent was, the will in his heart would not allow him to stop. Uzumaki, in his hands tightly, pouring all his strength into the blade. He is not reckless without thinking, but has his own considerations. Concentrate your whole body Reiatsu in one place and release it with a wave of Zanpakuto. Kiba Tianchong trick of the protagonist Kurosaki Ichigo in the original book. I saw a large amount of white light released from Naruto Zanpakuto, illuminating the surrounding field. Dashu looked at him coldly, standing motionless, but the spiritual pressure on his body was also rising. Suddenly, Naruto's Zanpakuto crashed down. A burst of knife light was released from his blade. It's like a crescent moon in the sky, but even more dazzling. The crescent-shaped blade chi came to Dashu in an instant. Cover him all over. The sand along the way was cut with a long trace by this knife chi, and the sand was flying. However, the Ichukis-level Daxu didn't dodge at all. Facing Naruto's full-strength blow, he just gently stretched out an arm across his chest and held it. Naruto's meniscus knife abruptly stopped in front of him. "Is this your ultimate trick? So weak." Dashu laughed. Naruto's eyes were heavy, and his body's spiritual energy was severely depleted at the moment. This blow almost took away most of his strength, but this Ichika's big void was so easily stopped. This greatly exceeded his expectations. Yi, who was on the side, was also greatly shocked. If it were her, she would definitely be unable to stop Naruto's blow, but that Daxu was so tyrannical. This is comparable to a figure at the level of Captain Death. However, in the next instant, a light suddenly flashed behind that Dashu, and a figure appeared behind it at an unknown time. It was Nailu. I saw that Nailu's form at this time had undergone a complete change. I saw her lower body turned into an antelope, and her upper body was still a beauty. Back to the blade. At this time, the form that will completely release the power of Zanpakuto. This is what it looks like when you return to your strongest state. Nailu has become a master within a period of time after she has just turned into a broken face. Her talent is indeed very powerful. At this time, Nailu raised her arm high, holding a huge white bone spear in her palm, with sharp thorns on both ends of the spear. Her power has also been raised to the highest level. Suddenly, she threw it fiercely. The bone spear turned into a green streamer, and instantly pierced towards the back of the Ichukis class Daxu. Dashu was slightly startled. He didn't expect that at the same time as Naruto attacked, Nailu actually went around behind him and made a sneak attack. This is actually a tactic of Naruto. He did not rush up to seek death, but planned to use his whole body strength to contain this guy, so that Nailu could find an opportunity to use stronger power. And all these two people do so tacitly, like the same person, and it does not need to be arranged in advance. 876. Kill Ichukas. Empathy. There is a power in the dark, and at a critical moment, Nailu and Naruto can achieve this state. During the battle, the consciousness of the two can almost be synchronized. Perhaps this power was the result of the fusion of Naruto's death power and Nailu's ethereal power before. So, it's a perfect fit. No language is needed in the middle, just fight. The bone spear turned into a streamer, penetrated the air, and made a whistling sound, bringing an abnormal pressure. As soon as you heard it, you knew that it contained enough power. Dashu also seemed to be aware of the danger. He squeezed Naruto's crescent-shaped sword chi with one hand and slammed it outwards, throwing it away. But just as it was about to be thrown out, Naruto's slightly jerky chant came suddenly. The thunderous carriage, the gap in the spinning wheel, this thing has light, and it is divided into 6. The 61st 60 Jinchuriki column light prison. As soon as the voice fell, Dashu noticed that the light of 6 paths suddenly flew out around his body, and with a few squeaks, he was instantly inserted into its waist. What? Break it for me. Dashu was so angry that his whole body shook. The next moment, Naruto's ghost path was instantly broken, and the 6 paths light sheet turned into a little light and disappeared. Naruto panted violently on the spot, feeling dizzy. He used the ghost power that he could not master at this stage, the 61 bondage, which was the strongest lesson Yi taught him along the way. If you go further up, Naruto's spiritual power requirements cannot be met and cannot be practiced. However, Naruto learned very seriously. Even if Yi just taught it casually, he did not miss the slightest opportunity to learn and seized it. Although it was very jerky at this time, it was successfully displayed. This scene shocked Yi next to him. Also because of this, Daxu's figure is a hindrance. Originally, Nailu's attack could not hit him accurately, but at this time, it has accurately landed on Daxu's body. Kai. The sound of a body being pierced came, and I saw that Nailu's huge bone spear had deeply pierced this big empty body. Blood spurted out, and a voice of unwillingness sounded, "Damn death. Damn." Its entire body turned into light and disappeared. Nailu's body trembled slightly, a little light condensed on her body returned to human form, and the Zanpakuto in her hand was put back on her waist. The energy of this big virtual is directly absorbed by her, which is also one of her basic abilities. It is exactly the same as Naruto's. I have to say that the two are really very similar in this regard. Nailu immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, closed her eyes and began to absorb this huge surge of energy. Naruto knelt down on one knee and half-hearted, gasping for breath. He saw that Nailu had gained a lot, and a gratified smile appeared on his face. In addition to the perfect cooperation between the two of them, the fact that this Ichukas-level Daxu was able to defeat this time is also because the Daxu underestimated the enemy. If it used all its strength to injure Nailu from the beginning, if so, Nailu may not cooperate with Naruto so quickly. However, he finally defeated this powerful enemy. Although he could only absorb the emptiness that he killed when absorbing energy, Naruto didn't get any benefit this time, but Nailu became stronger, and he was very happy. Yi came over, helped Naruto, and asked with concern, "Are you all right? This time is really dangerous." Naruto shook his head. "It's just a little out of strength, let me recover." As he said that, he also sat down on the spot and practiced his inner spiritual power. In the cultivation of spiritual power, in addition to killing the virtual to obtain energy, almost all the gods of death can only be strengthened by their own cultivation, and although Naruto has a shortcut to absorb the power of the virtual, he has learned from Yaiki during these times. From the basic knowledge that I have received, I also know that self-cultivation is also very important. For Naruto, if absorbing the power of emptiness is a process of accumulation of spiritual power, then self-cultivation is a cultivation of power control and recovery, both of which are equally important. The former can bring quality changes to Naruto, and the latter can improve Naruto's control of power. You guys are so brave. Even I'm not proficient at that level of ghosts. You actually used it. Should I say that you are talented in pervert, or you are reckless? Yi holding her forehead to teach Naruto, but the expression on her face admired him very much. Being able to learn the ghost way that he casually taught him in a short period of time, this talent is definitely the #1 person in the corpse and soul world. Why would such a guy appear in such a dangerous place in the virtual circle, and he is so good with a virtual? Like siblings. This is simply unimaginable. Who is this guy? Yi was very curious, and really wanted to go back and check this guy's history and information. After a while, both Naruto and Nailu woke up, Naruto's spiritual power recovered, and Nailu became stronger. Compared with before, her spiritual pressure was twice as strong. This made Naruto feel a sense of oppression standing beside her. Seeing Nailu's cute and innocent appearance, Naruto thought to himself, he must become stronger. He can't be behind Nailu, he doesn't want to appear a second time when he is protected by her like this time. With urgency, Naruto carried Yaiki on his back again and walked forward. And this time, because this Achukas level Great Void was killed, it turned out that there was no stronger void in this area. The three of them crossed easily along the way, but they encountered a Killian on the way. The level of Daxu was beheaded by Naruto, which increased his power once. After killing the lowest level Daxu, Naruto can obviously get an increase in strength, which means that the target of his spiritual power enhancement is the Korean level Daxu. Hope to see more of them. However, Killian level Daxu is actually rare in this outer circle, and is often led by Achukas level Daxu. Even if there are a large number of Daxu in the underground gathering place, Naruto doesn't dare to go in at this stage. In so many great voids, even if Nailu has the power of Achukas, it is difficult to protect it completely. She was able to escape with Naruto and Yaiki before. One lucky thing. Moreover, there are so many places where Killian is a big virtual, how can there be no Achukas level big virtual? Therefore, the three of Naruto were indeed very lucky before, but this kind of luck does not happen all the time. 877. Departure and Journey. The three finally passed through this area and reached the destination that Yi said. From a distance, Naruto saw several figures over there, all of whom seemed to be gods of death. I also saw it at night. Finally found the origin. Yi breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't want to stay in such a dangerous and dark place as the virtual circle. Well, here we are. Those are all your companions. Now you are safe. You can walk through this part of the road by yourself. Naruto smiled. He put down Yaiki on his back and looked at her feet. He warned again. Go back and check it carefully, don't be so stubborn in the future. Yi climbed down from his back and suddenly stared at Naruto with a look of reluctance in his eyes. I see. However, after hearing Naruto's lesson, she hummed in dissatisfaction. Okay, let's see you later. Naruto was actually a little reluctant when he let go of her. After all, he got along with her very happily along the way, and it was really uncomfortable for him to leave suddenly like this. After all, he will return to the previous world in the future, and it is still unknown whether he can continue to return here next time. This time to leave, maybe it is not necessarily a goodbye. However, after all, Naruto is a strong man who has experienced a lot. He quickly cleaned up his mood and showed a bright smile on his face. This time I carried you on my back for so long. After I return to the soul world, you can invite me eat. Looking at the bright and somewhat dazzling smile on his face, the tears in Yi's eyes finally couldn't help falling, but she was also very strong, and did not cry. The tears in the corners of her eyes were forced back, she also trying to show a forced smile. I will definitely be stronger than you at that time. Just wait for me. If you pat me on the head next time, I will never forgive you. You knocked on me so many times along the way and still hold grudges. Naruto couldn't help but shouted. HMPH. Hurry up and return to the soul realm. I don't care what purpose you have here. In short, I will teach you a lesson. Yi snorted and turned to leave. Naruto waved to her and laughed. With her back to Yi who was leaving, the tears in her eyes finally couldn't help flowing. She seemed to have a premonition in her heart that she would not be able to see him for a long time in the future. Naruto watched her back gradually move away, and a sense of melancholy rose in his heart. Watching her return to those companions, Naruto turned and left. "Let's go, Nailu, it's time for us to embark on our journey." Naruto took Nailu's hand and went in the opposite direction. After Yi returned to his companions, he turned to look at Naruto and Nailu's retreating backs, and muttered, "I must check your information when I go back. Yi, you finally came back and scared us to death. A group of us fell into the Great Void Forest and got separated from you. I thought you were bad luck," a team member said to her. "By the way, I saw two figures over there just now. Who are they? Why didn't they come together?" another person suddenly asked. Oh, they are the friends I met during this time, and they are also the gods of death who came to practice in the virtual circle, but they still have to continue to practice." Yi replied quickly. She did not say that Nailu was fictitious things. "That's right, it looks like it should be our senior." "Well, but they didn't come because they were in a hurry." Yi covered up for the two of Naruto. "Hey, that's really a pity." The partners sighed. Naruto and Nailu were walking in the virtual circle, and it had been a while since Yi was sent away, but when he remembered the fight with Yi before, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. "These things are probably only fragments of deep memory, right? There should be no chance to go to the Soul Realm in the future. After all, my goal is to go back to save Urza and the others, and then pursue a stronger power to travel freely through time and space. At that time, I may find a way to go. Let's look at this dark little girl in the Soul World," Naruto thought secretly. On the other hand, Nailu stood beside Naruto, followed him and walked forward, occasionally looking at his face. She couldn't help but smile. Now Naruto is finally the only one by his side, it feels so comfortable to walk with him. Nailu thought sweetly in her heart. "Nailu." At this moment, Naruto suddenly said, "What is your current strength?" My strength, I feel like it should be on the level of Ichuka's." Nailu was stunned for a moment, then she quickly returned to her senses and smiled. "Well, Ichuka's level, so what level do you think my current strength is?" Naruto asked again. "It's stronger than normal Kirin, but far weaker than Ichuka's," Nailu said truthfully. But it doesn't matter. Until Naruto you become stronger, I will always protect you." She took Naruto's arm with both hands and smiled. The huge twin peaks on her chest firmly squeezed Naruto's arms, and the soft and elastic feeling immediately made Naruto feel a strange feeling. He couldn't help turning his head to look at her breasts. The high bulging place was just wrapped by a thin green cloth, a large piece of soft snow white was exposed around it, and there was even a deep ravine in his eyes. "It's so deep, it's hard to take your eyes off it." Naruto glanced at her expression again, seeing a firm and pure smile on her face. The strangeness in her heart slowly dissipated. Nailu was just a diker before she broke down, right? She treats her emotions simply by following and protecting her, just like the relationship between a kitten and its owner, pure and strong, and no force can cut it off. Thinking of this, Naruto couldn't help but stretch out his other hand and gently touched Nailu's head. Nailu happily and obediently stretched out her head, leaned against Naruto's chest, and rubbed against him gently, as if just like a kitten petted by its owner, it makes people feel endless pity. Although, her current image is that of a royal sister, but in Naruto's eyes, there is no sense of violation at all. Perhaps, this is because he himself watched the evolution of the Diker all the way. 878. Target, Inner Circle. Soul Realm. An ancient and mysterious atmosphere filled this space. In a huge library, a figure was flipping through materials. She has short purple hair and dark skin, but the whole person has a unique beauty. It's Night 1. She had just returned to the Soul Realm from the virtual circle, and then ran to the 2nd Division's team building to find their captain and asked about Naruto. However, I was surprised to find that this person does not exist. Doubtful at night. She couldn't help but ran to the family's database to find some information about Naruto, but unfortunately, even though the family's energy was huge, they couldn't get information about Naruto. It would be great if we could enter the Great Spirit Book Corridor. Night thought. Virtual Circle. Naruto and Nailu went all the way, looking for a challenge on the way. However, this is the periphery of the virtual circle, and it is very difficult to encounter a big virtual. It was a great luck to encounter a big virtual at the Ichuka's level before, but now the two have been looking for a long time without a strong opponent. If things go on like this, Naruto's strength will be limited, and his heart will become more and more anxious. Nailu, let's enter the inner circle. Naruto suddenly suggested. I want to become stronger quickly, and entering the inner circle is the best way. The inner circle. Nailu has a worried look on her face. She seems to have some information about that aspect in her memory. It is the place where the power is most concentrated in the virtual circle, and there are also very powerful virtual circles. Most of the Daxu live there. And it is controlled by Ichuka's level Great Void, and even Vastord, who manages a large group of lower-level Great Void. Under the management of the wise Daxu, the order there has formed a system, and ordinary people will cause trouble if they easily step into it. Therefore, when Naruto made this proposal, it was equivalent to jumping to the most dangerous place. Although Nailu was worried, she looked at Naruto with a strong desire to become stronger. She didn't want to go against his desire, she wanted to help him realize this desire. Okay, then let's go to the inner circle. But before that, Naruto, your strength has to reach the level of Ichuka's. Nailu nodded and said. So, the two sensed the surrounding aura, and went all the way to the place where the aura of the spiritual pressure became stronger and stronger. The stronger the spiritual pressure, the closer it is to the inner circle. It couldn't be simpler. Along the way, Nailu was extremely vigilant. Her strength has now reached the average Ichuka's. If there is a level among Ichuka's, she is now a low-level Ichuka's. That is to say, it is the same as the Ichuka's that appeared before. If he encounters it again, Nailu will never lose. Moreover, after the face-breaking, Nailu's ability has also been enhanced. If the strength after returning to the blade is calculated, she can even be comparable to the intermediate Ichuka's. And the Ichuka's level Daxu belongs to the leadership level even in the inner circle. Therefore, what she is most nervous about now is the safety of Naruto. Naruto's current strength is only stronger than Kirin, but there is still a lot of difference between him and Ichuka's. If you suddenly encounter the powerful Ichuka's if attacked, there is a high chance of being killed. She would never allow such a thing to happen. Naruto is the only person who has been relying on each other along the way. To her, he is her dearest and dearest person. No one is allowed to hurt him. A little bit of time passed, the two supported each other and moved forward together. On the way to the inner circle, they also encountered a few powerful giants, but they were all handled by Naruto, which made Naruto's ability also. There has been a lot of progress in this short period of time. Although it has not reached the level of Ichuka's, his strength in other aspects has also improved rapidly. Especially his Shunpo level, even if he encounters an Ichuka's level existence, he can rely on Shunpo's speed to avoid it. Moreover, his ghost skills have gradually become proficient. At that time, Yi taught him some simple ghost ways, and he also practiced them one by one. Now that his comprehensive strength, even if he encounters the existence of the inferior Ichuka's, he will not become helpless. Of course, if you want to enter the inner circle at this level, there is still a huge risk. After all, there is a powerful Ichuka's Daxu living there, and there are countless Kilian Daxu who work for them. Naruto and Ni, the two of them, have to be careful once they reach the inner circle. However, in order to increase his strength, Naruto must currently kill a large number of Kilian Daxu, even Ichuka's level Daxu. This is the only way for Naruto to cultivate, and it is also the fastest shortcut for him to increase his strength. However, although he can now increase his spiritual power by hunting Daxu, this method is not infinite, and there is a limit to the amount of emptiness he can absorb in a period of time. And after absorbing it, it must be refined to be completely transformed into its own spiritual power. Otherwise, the body will absorb more and more spiritual power, but if it is not refined, the result can only be to make one's own soul become filled with impurities. It would be worth the loss. Now, Naruto has made a rough calculation. Although he does not know the number of days in the virtual circle, he can roughly estimate that in one day, he can absorb the power of 10 big virtual heads. If he absorbs more, it will be like before under the ground. No matter how many Daxu beheaded, it will not be able to restore spiritual power. As for the Achukas level Great Void, he has not absorbed it, and it is a matter of luck to meet the Achukas level Great Void, and it is impossible for many to appear at once. However, now Naruto can hunt and kill very few Great Voids, and basically he can only encounter one at most a day, so his current strength enhancement is simply in short supply. Therefore, entering the inner circle and hunting more Daxu is the best and fastest solution. Of course, Naruto could also choose to cultivate slowly and use his body to slowly absorb the free spiritual power from the outside world, but that speed is very slow, and without a special method, there is simply no way to make an essential leap. However, if he could resolve Master Zanpakuto, S. Shikai and D, that would be another situation. Today, this is still far away for Naruto, so improving his basic spiritual power is the most important. 879. Another powerful enemy. When the figures of the two had just climbed over a hill, the expressions of Naruto and Nailu could not help but sank slightly. An invisible huge momentum and spiritual pressure suddenly enveloped the two of them. The inner circle is here, Nailu said softly. Is this the inner circle? Naruto looked at the horizon ahead. Because the virtual circle was very wide, the line of sight could reach a long distance. At the end of the horizon, Naruto saw a small point. That seems to be a huge building. I don't know what the end of there is. Could it be the Void Knight Palace? Naruto muttered to himself. Let's go. After that, he waved and stepped into this more dangerous area with Nailu. In the inner circle, because a large number of powerful virtuals gather here, a strong spiritual pressure naturally condenses in the air here, making some ordinary and weak virtuals not dare to approach this place at all. The two looked at each other. Naruto's eyes were firm, and he walked forward with big strides. Just when he just took a step, the desert in front of him suddenly shook, and then the dust flew into the sky, and in front of Naruto and the two of them suddenly erected 7 or 8 tens of meters high giants. A huge virtual hole was exposed on Dashu's body, and their eyes glowed with a sinister Yuhi light. However, these big virtuals didn't rush over here. They seemed to be controlled by others, but they just stopped the two people's footsteps. The next moment, when Naruto was about to attack, he saw a figure slowly walk out from behind these big virtuals. The visitor was covered in white shell armor, with a sharp single horn on the top of his head, and his body looked like a huge crustacean reptile. It exudes a powerful aura that is daunting. Nailu immediately blocked in front of Naruto and blocked the momentum faintly, but she also seemed to be unbearable, and cold sweat broke out on her face. The big emptiness that has appeared is absolutely not to be underestimated. Definitely an Achukas-level existence. Even intermediate Achukas. If Nailu is not using the return blade, she can't defeat it at all. Naruto, its strength is not simple. If there is a conflict later, you can solve those big mistakes first, and leave it to me. Nailu said. At this moment, the voice of the beetle Daxu came. There is actually an Achukas. It seems that this patrol has made me meet a good prey. Hey, what's your name? Your mask is actually open. And the body looks like a human. But the breath on the body is not strong. What the hell are you? It looked at Nailu. I'm Nellie L. Neil said lightly. Nellie L. It's a Daxu I haven't heard of. Judging from your strength, it should be the new Achukas outside, right? I didn't expect you to look so human-like, and you still have a lot of power in your hands. There are weapons like Zanpakuto. Tisk tisk tisk, this is really rare. But if you want to enter this place, you must pass my test. The beetle Daxu laughed. Trial. Nailu quietly pulled out Zanpakuto, standing in front of her, her face full of vigilance. Haha, in my trial, the winners can pass, and the losers will become my prey. Turn it into my food. By the way, that guy over there is the god of death. As a virtual circle, you are actually mixed with the god of death. Although I don't know why your mask is opened, it still cannot get rid of the fact that you are a phantom. To be with human beings is to betray the entire phantom circle. It's my duty to eat you. Beetle Daxu laughed wildly. His body suddenly exudes a powerful force, and the huge spiritual pressure almost hinders Naruto's actions. This is really the big imaginary of the intermediate Uchukas, the advanced Uchukas, and even the Vashi Todd. How strong should they be? Naruto was secretly shocked. He had read the original book and knew that in the virtual circle, the Uchukas level Daxu was equivalent to an ordinary captain level, and the power of those Vashi Todd level Daxu was even greater than that. Captain level. And the leader level death god is rare in the soul world. And Naruto, now he has to fight a captain level existence. He can't escape. Give it all to me. You shred the trash god of death first, and leave this woman to me. Beetle Daxu moved, his voice came out of his mouth, and those Daxu immediately obeyed and rushed towards Naruto. Come over. And Nailu knows that with Naruto's current strength, she can still deal with these lower level Daxu, so when the Beetle Daxu just moved, she rushed over with a knife and fought with it. Boom. It was the first time the two faced each other, and the energy that escaped deeply shocked Naruto. Under that kind of spiritual pressure, he even felt that he couldn't intervene at all. Woohoo. At this time, those Daxu also rushed towards Naruto. Naruto's eyes narrowed, he pulled out the Uzumaki from his waist, and rushed towards the big virtuals. Swish swish. A momentary step, Uzumaki slashed out in his hand. Kai. In an instant, a large virtual body was divided into two halves from the waist, turning into bits of energy and disappearing into the air. The next moment, a Yuhi light flashed out with a bang, heading towards his back. It's flickering. Naruto was keenly aware of the danger, and with a flick of his figure, he cast out another instant. Immediately dodge the attack of the virtual dodge. Boom boom boom. At the same time, a few flashes of Yuhi color were jetted towards Naruto, and Naruto has cultivated his speed very fast due to the original intention of practicing Shunpo during this period of time. I can't keep up with him. All the virtual flashes bombarded the empty space, and bursts of dust and fire erupted in the desert. Hey, that god of death isn't bad. He was able to handle my attack with ease. It seems that after killing you, I have to eat him too. Beetle Daxu spoke while fighting Nailu. You dare, I will never let you succeed. Nailu's whole body suddenly condensed, and the speed of the knife in her hand increased by 1 point, stabbing the Beetle Daxu in front of her, bringing bursts of afterimages. However, although the Beetle Daxu looks relatively bulky, its speed is not slow at all, and it seems very relaxed under Nailu's full attack. It sneered again. It seems that you have really completely turned your back on Shu and become the lackey of the god of death. 880. Nailu lost. Humph. Naruto is the most important person to me. No matter what, I won't let anyone hurt him. Nailu narrowed her eyes. At this time, she no longer looked so cute in front of Naruto. An AWE inspiring and serious Valkyrie. Haha, it's really funny. If you report this to the Virtual King, I don't know how the Virtual King will react. There will be traitors like you in the virtual circle. Beetle Daxu suddenly shook his body. Behind him a pair of bone wings popped out. Countless bone needles appeared on the bone wings in an instant, shooting towards Nailu overwhelmingly. Seeing this scene, Nailu couldn't help shrinking her pupils. She hurriedly backed away, and at the same time the Zanpakuto in her hand danced tightly. Ding ding dong. Crunch of metal clashing, and the dazzling Hanabi flashing on her Zanpakuto. Nailu bit Silver Kiba slightly, blocking the attack with all her might. However, seeing that Nailu blocked her attack, the bone wings on the beetle's back suddenly vibrated faster, and the number and speed of the bone needles shot doubled at once. Nailu was shocked. This time she couldn't hold back any longer. The bone needles that penetrated her body were covered with scars all over her body. Even her clothes were scratched, revealing the tender and white skin on her chest. To be completely naked, exposed. Boom. With a muffled sound, Nilou's body fell on the sand dune, blood dripping from her body, and there were even many bone needles stuck in her arms and thighs. Hey, you're not strong enough. Obediently let me eat it. Nelly L. The beetle opened his mouth wide, and his saliva dripped to the ground. At this time, Naruto, who was fighting with all his strength not far away, suddenly saw this scene, and his face was shocked. Nilou. He didn't care about anything. He turned around abruptly. A blade of light with a ray of light like a pistol killed the last two Daxu in an instant. A little under his feet, he made a move, and instantly appeared in the beetle. Behind the big virtual Uzumaki, in his hand is slashed down fiercely. However, the next moment, the bone wings on the beetle's back were suddenly retracted, forming an armor-like protection on its back. Naruto's Zanpakuto landed on it with a knife light, and it made a loud noise, which made Naruto's arm sore, but there were no scars on its back. Fear. This guy's defense is so terrifying. Naruto's blow had no effect, and Nilou couldn't help shouting, "Naruto, leave." As soon as Nilou finished speaking, Naruto suddenly felt the beetle's body shake violently. The next moment, a strong vibration was transmitted to Naruto's knife, and then to Naruto's body along the hilt. Puff. With a groan, Naruto only felt that his body and mind were shaken, and his entire body was bounced towards the rear. Humph. Ants. The beetle glanced at Naruto in disdain, and said mockingly, "To stay with such a weak god of death, you are truly degenerate." Nelly L. When Nilou saw Naruto being ejected, a strong aura emerged from her body, and her spiritual pressure was suddenly released. Return to the blade. An incomparably powerful Reiatsu emanated from her body, and a gust of wind and sand was rolled up around her. The energy Uzumaki formed by the white Reiatsu gradually spread out, revealing Nilou's figure. The upper body is a beautiful woman holding a bone spear, and the lower body is the body of a fast-running antelope. This is her return blade. At this time, Nilou's strength has been improved to the intermediate level of Ichuka's. It has been able to compete with the beetle in front of it. Nilou came to Naruto in a flash, stretched out her hand and pulled him up, her face full of worry. "Naruto, are you alright?" Naruto's hands were trembling slightly at this time, and the force of the shock almost made the Zanpakuto in his hand fly out, unable to hold it. It's okay. Naruto bit Kiba. He clenched Zanpakuto again, and a wave of energy suddenly gathered around him. These are the energies provided by the Daxu that was killed just now. Naruto closed his eyes and slowly absorbed it, calming the Reiatsu that had been shaken in his body. When he opened his eyes, the momentum on his body condensed slightly, and he felt that he was much stronger. Seeing that there was nothing wrong with him, Nilou breathed a sigh of relief and looked at the beetle Daxu. "I said, never allow you to hurt Naruto." She strode forward, the bone spear in her hand raised high, aiming at the beetle Daxu. There were bursts of green light above the bone spear, and the powerful spiritual pressure was scattered. "Hee, I really can't believe that you can increase your strength and transform. This is really strange. Are you a virtual? Just now I could feel that your spiritual pressure seems to be different from the virtual." The beetle asked suspiciously. Humph. Die. Nilou didn't say much, and directly projected the bone spear glowing with emerald green light in her hand. She is very angry now, and she will not let anyone who dares to hurt Naruto, no matter who it is. Because Naruto is his bottom line and cannot be touched. Since you don't say it, then I have to eat you and feel it myself. Beetle Dashu saw a streamer coming from the sky, and after sneering, the unicorn on his head suddenly appeared a kind of yuhi-colored light. It was aimed at the emerald bone spear that Nilou flew past. Kai. Boom. With a loud bang, Nilou's bone spear finally collided with the beetle's unicorn, and the two forces radiated dazzling light. Yuhi color and green color complement each other. A violent air wave spread from it, and the surrounding sky was set off. Of dust. Feeling the powerful force in it, Naruto couldn't help frowning slightly. The next moment, with a crisp sound, Nilu's bone spear was violently bounced back. Nilu stepped forward to catch it, and her body couldn't help but take a few steps backwards. And that beetle Daxu didn't move. He laughed. The strength is good, but unfortunately it is not my opponent. Within 100 moves, I can definitely kill you. But an opponent like you is really rare. After eating you, I will definitely be able to advance. Ha ha ha. It let out a piercing long laugh, didn't even look at Naruto, seemed to regard him as air. Nilu looked solemn. She slowly said to Naruto, Naruto, this guy is too difficult. Don't interfere this time, hurry up and find a chance to escape. Don't look back. Naruto stretched out his hand and refused. Nilu, I will never leave. If you don't go, you will definitely be eaten. This time, you can't stay here. Hearing his stubborn words, Nilu became anxious.